Chapter 1295. As Zhang Liang stepped onto the rainbow bridge step by step, countless ghosts appeared around him, flowing between life and death in black and white. Most of them had hideous faces that didn't look like humans. Some had the characteristics of hybrids between humans and beasts. Some were simply ferocious beasts and demons, and some were mutated humans with green faces and fangs. These ghosts were wrapped in the power of faith, which turned into all kinds of strange phenomena, such as chains, banners, ritual tools, whips, conch horns, small drums, gongs in the black and white air. These ghosts wailed and wriggled, looking like 100 ghosts walking in a day, evil ghosts coming out of their cages. The evil spirits were shackled by the chains formed by the power of incense, and the black and white banners drove them away. The long whips whipped the evil spirits that approached Zhang Liang and wanted to devour him. There was also the sound of the conch horn, the small drum, and the gong. When the evil spirits heard it, they all revealed pained expressions and were driven away. They knelt on the rainbow bridge and worshipped Prince Bo Jun on the white jade platform. As they knelt, the power of what they carried with them surged towards Bo Jun, turning into heavenly flowers with faint golden divine power that sprinkled down on Bo Jun's body. Crown Prince Bo Jun also felt refreshed after being affected by the godly energy. Fan Wujie was shocked. Does the way of peace want to die? How dare they enslave souls? How dare they enslave souls in front of the inspectors of the heavenly court? Do they think the Earth Palace doesn't exist? Aren't the Earth Palace and the heavenly court one family? The Shui Tu King quickly pulled him back. Look carefully, fourth brother. These are not living souls, they are ancestral spirits. Ancestral spirits are false gods of the Yang realm who don't enter the underworld, but forcefully become gods with the power of faith. Those whose souls are strong enough to resist the pull of the gate of hell and not enter the cycle of reincarnation after death. They feed on the power of faith to reconstruct their souls and forcibly transform their primordial spirits into gods. This is a loophole in the agreement between the underworld and the Tao of gods, using the sacrifices of their own descendants to feed themselves and turn them into Yin spirits, obtaining part of the status and privileges of gods, becoming Yin spirits outside the law that the underworld can't control. Yuan Yu shook his head and added, they won't be forcibly captured by the underworld and sent into the cycle of reincarnation, but they won't be protected by the underworld either. They're the lowest of the Tao of gods. Although Yin spirits can be said to be the foundation of the Tao of gods, they're also despicable. These false gods of the Tao of gods are called ancestor spirits by the Tao of demons, and are called ancestral spirits by humans. Many human ancestral spirits are recognized by the heavenly court, but they don't have enough merit, so they temporarily live in families and be worshipped by their descendants. The Tao of ancestors have insufficient merit, and the Tao of the Tao of the Tao of Tao. This is also a righteous path of the divine Tao. This kind of merit accumulated by descendants for their ancestors is called Yin virtue in the merit dharma. Those with Yin virtue will inherit. Ancestral spirits, on the other hand, do not have any merit, so they can only sacrifice the blood of their descendants to strengthen their ancestor spirits so that they can manifest their power and protect their descendants. Ancestral spirits are in the system of the Tao of peace, preparing to become immortals, while ancestral spirits are fake ghosts and gods, which the Tao of demons and barbarians reject. That Zhang Liang enslaved countless ancestral spirits and made them kowtow to the Tao of heaven, to show his loyalty, to show that the Tao of peace has captured sinful souls for the Tao of peace and cleaned up evil spirits. Young Master Moon nodded faintly as well, expressing his approval. The Tao of peace destroyed ruined temples and cleaned up evil spirits to expand its power and occupy those barren lands where the Tao of gods hasn't been conferred by the Tao of peace. But it was also to answer the call of the Tao of peace, to clean up those bloodthirsty magispreists and evil spirits. Because of this, the Tao of peace won the favor of the powerful figures in the Tao of peace. Now, Zhang Liang has commanded these ancestral spirits to show that he has done the Tao of peace. The Shuetu kings secretly talked to Fan Wu Jia. The bloodline of the Tao of demons is respected, so they worship many ancestral spirits. But the fact that ancestral spirits can go beyond the jurisdiction of the netherworld and be recognized by the netherworld is not as simple as they say. Fan Wu Jia whispered, "Is it because of the witchcraft cult?" Yes, the ancestral spirits are the gods recognized by the witchcraft cult, and they're also the foundation of the witchcraft cult's divine system. Back then, Goddess Hutu recognized the ancestral spirits as gods and did not restrict them by reincarnation. The difference between gods and gods is one of the 9 questions of the netherworld. What is the difference between ghosts and gods in reincarnation? The water in it is very deep. Even when the Tao of heaven and earth and the other sects put their hands into reincarnation, built the netherworld, and interfered with the matters of reincarnation, it is difficult to change. Now, the influence of the witchcraft cult is still very strong. In the wilderness where the Tao of heaven's authority is not that strong, there are still many human tribes that worship the ancestral spirits of the sorcerer god. When the Emperor Heaven built the Tao of heaven, he did not directly recruit people from the witchcraft cult because he was afraid of the witchcraft cult. Later, when the Tao of heaven was built and the witchcraft cult was divided, some of the 12 ancestral wizards chose to follow the heaven. Some chose to follow Goddess Hutu, and some sought refuge with the candle dragon. The internal conflict is very complicated. In the future, the battle of heaven and earth and the destruction of the netherworld are all related to it. The ancestral spirits and other gods of the witchcraft cult who do not enter the system of the Tao of heaven are known as the 6 heavens ancient Qi and 6 heavens ancient ghost. The 3 great forces of the Tao of heaven, the netherworld and the mystic door to suppress the 6 heavens ancient Qi, are known as the 3 heavens righteous law. The 3 heavens righteous law against the 6 heavens ancient Qi is too complicated. Dara can drown 10 of them without breathing a sigh of relief. The path of peace is involved in this because they do not know what is good for them. We cannot be involved. Fan Wu Jie's expression changed. The fact that the path of peace was able to spread its name of rebelling against the heavens in the later generations and still retain its orthodoxy proved that it was indeed extraordinary. Zhang Liang's display of his supernatural powers to drive away the ghosts of the 6 heavens and kowtow to the celestial heavens seemed like a display of his supernatural powers on the surface. But in reality, he was trying to show off his merits to the celestial heavens. He was trying to show to the big shots that Zhang Jiao wanted to rely on that his orthodoxy had compromised with the laws of the celestial heavens. It was also one of the ways that Zhang Jiao surrendered to the Tao of heaven. But on a deeper level, it involved the entanglement between the 6 heavens ancient Qi and the 3 heavens righteous law. It could be traced back to the shaman-demon war, the destruction of the primordial demon court, and even the division of the shaman tribe. The Emperor of Heaven, Hutu, and the Candle Dragon led the division of the 12 ancestors of witchcraft. After the 12 ancestors of witchcraft attained Pangu, they fought with the primordial demon court for the throne of the Emperor of Heaven. After that, Emperor of Heaven established the heaven. Gong Gong, Zhu Rong, Chong Liang, and Zhang Zi followed him. Hutu established the netherworld. Xin Ming, Zhu Meng, and Ru Shou followed him. Tian Wu and Shi Bai Shi chose to follow the candle dragon. After the heavenly courts were established, the netherworld established by Hutu inevitably had conflicts with the heavenly courts, which was bound to centralize power. Although samsara was Hutu's divine right, the heavenly courts ruled the primordial world and controlled all divine rights. How could they allow the netherworld to be outside the heavenly court's power system for a long time? As a result, a war without gunpowder was triggered. In the end, Hutu lost the battle for power. The power of samsara fell, and the power of the netherworld returned to the heavenly courts. That was the rumor that circulated in the primordial world. It was the battle of heaven and earth that the heavenly courts had never officially acknowledged. This kind of power struggle among the higher-ups of the heavenly courts was quite obscure. Anyway, the witchcraft Hutu and Emperor Jiang jointly presided over the duopoly of the witchcraft. After defeating the primordial demon court and establishing the dual system of the heavenly courts and the netherworld, the Emperor of Heaven finally completed the centralization of the heavenly courts in the hands of the Emperor of Heaven, Xian Ming Gomong, and by submitted to the heavenly courts, and Hutu went into seclusion. There was a rumor that when the heaven and earth were fighting for power, the Emperor of Heaven made use of the struggle between Emperor Hua and Hutu to create a human. That was how he finally defeated Hutu in the power struggle. But because of that, Hutu and River Styx joined hands to destroy the netherworld, which was a hidden danger. The six heavens' old chi involved the power struggle between the Emperor of Heaven and Hutu, the destruction of the netherworld, the division of the witchcraft, the cause and effect of a part of the witchcraft joining the demon sect, the reform of the heavenly courts, and the struggle to create a human. Although Fan Wu Jie and the others did not know all of these, just the part that they knew was very scary. They did not dare to think about it further. The Shuetu king reminded Fan Wu Jie to not get involved with the six heavens' old chi, which was a taboo. After ensuring that they would not accidentally touch any hidden thunder and get involved in the battle that had nothing to do with them, they did not speak anymore. Fan Wu Jie watched Zhang Liang's magical power improve. Under his control, the six heavens' old ghost ancestral spirits rolled in the black and white air and summoned another group of Yin spirits. This time, the Yin spirits were like gods. They were full of pure Yin energy, and their faces were peaceful. Their faces were lifelike like real people. Even if they did not have a human face, most of them were handsome, beautiful, simple, and strong. These heroic spirits accompanied Zhang Liang, so that his every move was blessed by the gods and aided by the divine power of these Yin spirits. Could this be the peerless magical power of the peace scripture, the 9 degrees of Tao? Yuan Yu said with a solemn expression. The 9 degrees of Tao is used to capture ghosts and send gods. In the future, Taoism used to send ghosts and gods out of it. I thought it was just an exaggeration in the Tao scripture, but it seems like it is true. Ajadi frowned and said, if it really is the 9 degrees of Tao, then it was the ancestral spirits just now. Could it be the spirits of the ocean gods this time? The spirits of the ocean gods are boundless, and their Tao does not belong to anything. They make people talk nonsense, half true and half evil. Only then did Fan Wu Jie realize that the method Zhang Liang used to control the ancestral spirits and the ocean gods was an extremely powerful magical power. The Yin nature of the ancestral spirits of the demons and barbarians was chaotic, and their godly bodies were close to ghosts. They were accompanied by the power of curses, filth, and decay. Therefore, Zhang Liang used the energy of incense to bind and drive them. On one hand, he used the incense to feed them, and on the other hand, he used it to control and drive them. Just now, Zhang Liang had displayed the magical power of driving the ancestral spirits to worship in the peace scripture and condensing divine power into heavenly flowers. The ancestral spirits were like a filter and purifying device. They condensed the mixed power of incense and wishes into relatively pure divine power through the instincts of the ancestral spirits and gods. This kind of divine power could be used by Zhang Liang at will. When it was used on Prince Bo Jun, it could be turned into heavenly flowers. When it was used on himself, wouldn't his magical power increase exponentially? And it was endless. Now that the mountain spirits and water spirits had become the ocean gods, they were relatively pure vital chi that turned into spirits and turned into gods. Therefore, their divine power was relatively pure. Zhang Liang used the sacrificial method to worship these ocean gods to his side, and they turned into power from the void. In the void beside him, the ocean gods manifested and helped him sort out the laws of heaven and earth and vital chi. When a cultivator fought, they relied on their own magical power, but it was only a small force. More often, they relied on their own magical power to mobilize the power of heaven and earth. Now, other cultivators could only borrow the power of heaven and earth, But Zhang Liang used the magical power of the peace scripture and the 9 degrees of the great Tao to control the spirits of the ocean gods. Not only could he borrow the qi of heaven and earth, but he could also use the power of the gods and gods to naturally suppress others from borrowing the power of the qi of heaven and earth. Zhang Liang took another 9 steps on the rainbow bridge and bowed deeply to Prince Bo-jun. The endless divine power of the ocean gods once again surged toward Bo-jun's disciple. On the white jade platform, golden lotuses grew around Prince Bo-jun, and there was even a golden spring condensed from divine power, surging out to support the golden lotuses. The golden lotuses contained pure divine power, and only a few people present could see that these golden lotuses could be turned into extremely powerful protective magical power at any time. The captain of the Milky Way Navy, who was sitting next to Prince Bo-jun, seemed to be moved. However, he carefully examined the magical power contained in the golden lotuses and found that it was purely a protective magical power without any malicious intent, so he relaxed. Under Prince Bo-jun's signal, he didn't act up. Zhang Liang took another 9 steps. This time, what appeared was not the true body of the god, but some projections and illusions mixed with a few real heroic spirits. He was a demigod. Although those projections and illusions were symbols of the gods and demigods who supported the path of peace, they symbolized the relationship network of the path of peace. But young Master Mu and Fan Wu Jie both heaved a sigh of relief. Young Master Mu looked at Fan Wu Jie's relaxed expression and said with a smile, "I've heard of the path of peace's 9 degrees of the great Tao. The first is the inaction of vitality. The second is the calming of nothingness. The third is the visible number. The fourth is the return of the spirit. The fifth is the unity of the great Tao. The sixth is the piercing of happiness. The seventh is the heroic spirits of the society. The eighth is the spirits of the ocean gods. And the ninth is the spirits of the ancestors." It's the supreme magical power that divides the gods and the world into 9 degrees. And by borrowing the power of the 9 gods, he is invincible in the world. I thought he could really borrow the power of the Master of the Stars and the heavenly gods. It looks like Zhang Jiao still hasn't gotten permission from the big shot behind him to borrow the power of the celestial heavens. Now, he can only play around with the local gods. Those local gods are limited by the merit laws, so they can help him with some small things. But if it involves the survival of living beings, which is a big matter that is considered by the merit laws, I don't think any god would dare to help him at the risk of having their merit reduced. Fan Wu Jie also smiled and said, "If that's the case, then the 9 degrees of the great Tao is just a magical power that follows the heavens and does not violate the merit laws. Naturally, there will be the help of the 10,000 gods. Once Zhang Jiao wants to go against the heavens, he can only use the power of the ancestor spirits and evil gods imprisoned by the path of peace." Yuan Yu's expression changed when he heard that, and he said in a low voice that the audience could hear, "So this Zhang Liang is using the path of peace's peerless magical power, the 9 degrees of the great Tao. It's a pity that the head of the great Tao is the inaction of vitality. In this world, there are only 3 gods from the mystic door who can be called inaction of vitality. How powerful are the 3 gods from the mystic door? How can they be borrowed by a mere path of peace? Therefore, the 9 degrees of the great Tao of peace is just a little bit of the principle of the 3 pure ones, Daozu. Although its power is also very shocking, it is not invincible. The second one is Emperor Hua, Emperor Shi, the current Emperor Heaven, and the former demon Emperor Jun. The third one is the primordial god of sorcerer, demon god, and the great ones. The fourth one is the celestial emperors of the celestial heavens. Among the celestial emperors and celestial emperors that you can see in the heaven realm, the most inconspicuous one is the master god of a heavenly star. The 5 Tao gods are the gods of the 4 seasons and 5 elements, the gods of the great Tao. These celestial venerables, celestial emperors, celestial emperors, celestial emperors, celestial emperors, Lord Ji, which gods and demon gods, which one of them is not of extremely high status. Zhang Jiao spent a lot of effort, but at most, he could get a trace of divine power to help him. Only small gods like Ci Shidi, Ed, Yang Shun, and ancestor spirits can be ordered to imprison and steal their divine power. Also, if they are gods conferred by the celestial heavens, he can't touch them, even if they are the ancestors of a mere Mao Shun. This 9 degrees of the Great Tao, the first 4 degrees of the path of peace, can destroy mountains and temples, fight against evil gods, and capture the true bodies of those gods. As for the last 5 degrees, even if Zhang Jiao comes, he can only manifest a trace of shadow, cultivate it, and only get some superficial knowledge. This Zhang Liang's aptitude is not bad, but I don't believe that he can cultivate the last 5 degrees. The immortals around nodded. This divine art of Zhang Jiao's was indeed a little too ambitious, so it could not be perfected, only the first 4 degrees. This divine art was so ambitious that if he wanted to completely perfect it, or to cultivate it to the highest realm, perhaps even the Emperor of Heaven would not be able to do it. After all, the 3 pure ones were not the subjects of the Emperor of Heaven, so they could not cultivate the first degree of the Great Tao. And it was also not possible for the 3 pure ones to cultivate it, because the celestial heavens was not controlled by them. The gods of the 4 seasons and 5 elements, the Lord of the stars, the various ancient gods, and the celestial emperors could only be commanded by the Emperor of Heaven. The celestial heavens was originally the culmination of all divine authority, but Zhang Jiao created a vitality in action, which was beyond divine authority. His 9 degrees of the Great Tao could only be cultivated by one existence in theory. That was the Emperor of Heaven of a mystic door, appointed by the 3 pure ones. You could also see that the 9 degrees of the Great Tao contained the secrets of Dara that Zhang Jiao comprehended. To put it bluntly, the true meaning of Zhang Jiao's 9 degrees of the Great Tao was not as simple as you said. The vitality in action was the 3 chi of the 3 pure ones, beginning, origin, and mystic. As for the solidified nothingness, it was the ancient gods and great gods who had proven Pangu's Tao. The number of degrees could be seen, and the number of degrees could also be seen, counting from the hair to the 5 fingers, describing the inside and the outside separately. It meant to observe the inside with concentration, counting from the hair to the 5 fingers, carefully closing the inside and closing the outside, knowing more was defeat, and seeing the body of the yellow hall. The yellow hall was the body god, and the human body was the appearance of Pangu. The body god was the innate god-born when Pangu formed the heaven and earth, and the great gods who had proven Pangu's appearance. The secrets of Dara, contained in the 9 degrees of the Great Tao, were actually the secrets of the gods that were born when Pangu created the heaven and earth, which were also the secrets of Pangu's god. Unfortunately, Yu had long realized that the path that Zhang Jiao deduced could not be cultivated directly to Pangu's god. To reverse Pangu's transformation into god through the 9 degrees of the Great Tao and prove Dara. It was basically a whimsical idea. No wonder Zhang Jiao rebelled against the celestial court and wanted to establish the mystic door Emperor of Heaven. Yu came to a realization and said, so he didn't give up and wanted to take this dead end. But while the 9 degrees of the Great Tao is a fundamental technique in the Taiping Sutra, the current Zhang Jiao is definitely not crazy enough to use this path to attain the Grand Luo realm. There must be more than one dead end in the Taiping Sutra, right? Zhang Jiao should be cultivating another path now, which is why he wanted to rely on the celestial court. Then why did he turn to that dead end? Yu was a little puzzled, but this secret was definitely not something that could be found in a short period of time, so he temporarily put it at the back of his mind. Instead, he continued to build up momentum for Zhang Liang, revealing everything about him. On the white jade terrace, when Prince Bo Jun heard the explanation and encouragement of Yu and the others, he turned to look at where Zhang Jiao was sitting and said with a faint smile, Sect leader Taiping, is the one standing on the stage your younger brother? Truly the younger generation will surpass us in time. I've long heard that cult leader created the peace scripture and obtained the true teachings of the Nanhua genre. Now that I see your younger brother's supernatural power, It's really extraordinary." Zhang Jiao smiled and said, "Prince is too kind. It's just some vulgar techniques that are embarrassing in front of the great Tao of the heavenly courts. Emissaries of the heavenly courts, please excuse me." Prince Bo Jun laughed and said, "Your younger brother has the 9 degrees of the great Tao, cleansing the roots of the celestial heavens, crusading against the evil spirits of the 6 heavens. It can be seen that the Tao of peace upholds the teachings of the heavenly courts and follows the righteous path. It's rare and precious." Zhang Jiao bowed and said, "It's all thanks to Prince's good teachings. It's also because of Imperial Emperor Ziyang's strict laws that brought order out of chaos." Chapter 1296. Zhang Liang stepped onto the Rainbow Bridge and came to the white jade platform. He had already bowed to Prince Bo Jun 3 times. The first time was to the ancestral spirits of the ghosts, and their divine power condensed into heavenly flowers. The second time was to the ocean spirits, and golden lotuses emerged from the ground. The third time was to the joyous deities, and the heroic spirits of the society appeared to pay their respects to the prince. Their divine power condensed into a canopy that covered Prince Bo Jun's head, as if it was the center of the universe. After Zhang Liang stepped onto the white jade platform, Fan Wujia looked at him. His heart skipped a beat. He saw that the ancestral spirits of the evil gods that Zhang Liang had imprisoned were now under the command of the Tao of Peace. They surrounded Zhang Liang like a shogunate army. The ancestral spirits of the demons and barbarians were surrounded by a murderous aura. They looked ferocious and terrifying as they were chased to the periphery. The power of faith turned into chains that bound them, and the other end of the chains was held by the heroic spirits of the disciples of the Tao of Peace. These gods and ghosts were bound by the order cast by the 9 degrees of the great Tao, and turned into the prototype of a divine army. The ancestral spirits of the demons and barbarians had the lowest status, but their combat power was not low. In the primitive era, there were many connate life forms, descendants of ancient gods, and even descendants of primordial beasts. Even the weakest demon tribe in the primitive era had a bloodline that was much stronger than the descendants of the saints of the later generations. They were suppressed by the heaven, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was cut off, so they could only rely on their bloodline to grow, or devour each other's blood to cultivate. Their path of cultivation was cut off, and they could only rely on the witchcraft sacrifice or the devil path to strengthen themselves. However, because of that, the demon barbarian's intrinsic mystical abilities were extremely powerful. His physical body and blood chi were also countless times stronger after the primordial world was broken. None of the demons who could survive under the full suppression of the heavenly courts were weak. It was easy to imagine how powerful the ancestral spirits of the demon tribe, which are the biggest trump card of the tribe, were. Among the tens of thousands of ancestral spirits, the weakest had the combat power of a heaven immortal, and the most heterogeneous bloodline was also a variant of the primitive era. The ancestral spirits were cannon fodder, and the spirits of the ocean spirits were born close to the heaven and earth, and had all kinds of supernatural abilities. Each ocean god was equivalent to the blessing of the heaven and earth. If it was a mountain spirit, it could increase the strength of a mountain. If it was a water monster, it could open up the source of a river. Compared to the age of heavens, the quality of the mountains and rivers in the untainted land was more abundant than the great rivers, mountains, and dragon veins in the age of heavens. These ocean spirits were the sacrificial offerings of this divine army. Thousands of ocean spirits blessed Zhang Liang with their original sacrificial offerings. According to the order created by the 9 degrees divine sense of the Great Way, it was equivalent to reversing the process of Pangu's transformation into thousands of gods. These primitive mountain spirits and water monsters were regarded as physical gods, creating a fake body outside of their own bodies. In the end, the disciples of the Path of Peace who perished in the process of conquering the East and conquering the West retained the strength of the elites of the Path of Peace when they were alive. Moreover, they were loyal to the Path of Peace and were an army of ghosts raised by the Path of Peace. They were extremely loyal and were known as the Yellow Turban Strongmen. The cultivation and ability of these yellow-turbaned strongmen might not be stronger than the ancestral spirits, but as the backbone of the divine army, they united the power of the ancestral spirits and the spirits of the ocean spirits and were the backbone of the entire divine army. With their presence, the unruly ancestral spirits and the undisciplined ocean spirits could be exerted to the greatest extent. Zhang Liang stood in the center of the 9 degrees divine sense. The Great Way turned into various visions that spread out from his body, encompassing the 4 types of ghosts. The projections of Ci, Shi, and the earth spirits descended one after another and surrounded him like his counselors and aides. The heroic spirits of the disciples of the path of peace and the yellow-turbaned strongmen, as his personal army, drove the ancestral spirits and the cannon fodder. With the help of the ocean spirits, the entire divine army was united. The power of the divine order manifested into a chariot. The demonic aura and divine power of the ancestral spirits were forcibly extracted and turned into 4 bronze celestial horses that pulled the bronze chariot and carried Zhang Liang. The earth spirits, dressed in the robes of aides, rode with Zhang Liang. The yellow-turbaned strongmen drove the countless ghosts in the black fog and surrounded the chariot in the center. The black and white qi tumbled and turned into the yellow qi. In the yellow qi, such an army of ghosts surrounded Zhang Liang and rode on the rainbow bridge toward the white jade platform. Yuan Yu's expression changed drastically. Even the crown prince Bo Jun, who was sitting at the head of the table, looked a little solemn. "How dare you drive the yellow qi?" Young Master Mu threw his cup and said angrily, "The yellow qi is the qi of merit. Zhang Jiao's 9 degrees divine sense has turned into the yellow qi. Is he trying to get his hands on the merits?" Young Master Mu turned his head and revealed a look of fear. His consciousness rippled, and he transmitted his voice. "Wu Jia, Zhang Jiao created the 9 degrees divine sense. He must have lost his mind. If the Emperor of Heaven was still in power, this alone would be enough for the Milky Way Navy to exterminate his entire family." A hint of coldness flashed in young Master Mu's eyes, and he sneered, "How lazy! At least he knows his limits. He only sets up the chariot and horses and drives the ghost away with his mansion. Is this still the time when the Emperor of Heaven is still in power?" Fan Wu Jia asked in return. Young Master Mu was speechless. He sighed and said, "Since the reform of the Eastern King Kong, the laws of heaven have been broadened and freedom is advocated. With the appearance of some chaos, it is not that there are no objections in the celestial heavens. They think that we need to rectify the situation and establish order. However, the Eastern King Kong thinks that the rectification will destroy the current relaxed atmosphere and cause the reform to stagnate. Now in the celestial heavens, the few imperial emperors led by Imperial Emperor Ziyang have always regarded themselves as the successors of the Eastern King Kong. They have repeatedly said that they will continue the reform." Fan Wujie said, "Everyone knows that Zhang Liang is nothing. Behind him, Zhang Jiao is the key. Zhang Jiao indeed knows his limits. His 9 degrees of the great Tao should be the structure of the celestial heavens. It should accommodate countless gods and demons and use the principles of the 9 degrees of the great Tao to determine the order of theocracy. It will restrict and rule the countless gods and demons. It will contain the laws of the gods and protect the God Emperor in the center. It can be said that he is refining the laws of theocracy of the primordial universe to complete his own great Tao. If his vision is really realized, the laws of the primordial universe's great Tao will almost all be in the hands of the gods. The God Emperor will use the 9 degrees of the great Tao and the order of theocracy to refine the laws of the gods and turn them into his own power. Wouldn't that be equivalent to taking away the majority of the primordial universe's great Tao? This kind of ambition makes people tremble with fear, but even the person behind him can't tolerate such ambition. Young Master Mu said angrily, "That is why he degraded the 9 degrees of the great Tao and turned it into the God Army Shogunate. It means that he could be a vanguard general for the person behind him, and it also means that he has no intention of becoming the God Emperor." Fan Wu Jie recalled the pitifully little information about Zhang Jiao in the future, and he suddenly came to a realization. I know. He doesn't want to be the God Emperor. He wants to be the imperial teacher, a virtuous paragon teacher. He wants to use his principles to assist an imperial emperor and build the theocracy. Young Master Mu revealed a contemplative look. He watched as Zhang Liang stepped onto the white jade platform and flaunted his prowess under the escort of the God Army. Only then did he say in a deep voice, Wu Jie, you said that we want to promote a challenger to take care of that Zhang Liang, destroy Zhang Jiao's plan, and put Bo Jun on the spot. Can this idea still succeed? Fan Wu Jie said solemnly, Zhang Liang is nothing, but the Zhang Jiao behind him is very terrifying. At that time, we also didn't expect that Zhang Liang would bring all the foundation of the path of peace's theocracy with him. Zhang Liang is only a puppet on the platform. If we want to defeat him, we will have to compete with Zhang Jiao behind him. The 9 degrees of the Great Tao establishes the order of the path of God, drives the gods, and uses the magic power and Great Tao of the gods to provide one's own power, combining the power of ghosts and gods into one. Although the path of peace is not strong in the path of God, they have destroyed mountains and temples, and have fought against evil gods for tens of thousands of years. The foundation that Zhang Jiao has accumulated with the power of a sect cannot be underestimated. I might really not be a match for him. The power that a sect has accumulated for tens of thousands of years is already like this. What about the power of the celestial heavens? What about the foundation that the celestial heavens have accumulated for countless years? Yuan, you suddenly interrupted. You said that Zhang Jiao wants to be the imperial teacher, and that hit the nail on the head. But why don't you think deeper? Zhang Jiao established the order of the 9 degrees of the Great Tao and revealed it in front of the celestial heavens patrol in this sky bearing assembly. What is his deeper intention? Fan Wu Jie thought along Yuan Yu's words, and he immediately said in horror, he is suggesting to the person behind him that he wants to show the power of the 9 degrees of the Great Tao to control the gods. He is showing the superiority of a theocracy system that Zhang Jiao wants to establish to the person behind him. If the person behind him is an imperial emperor of the celestial heavens, then as long as he builds his own celestial heavens according to Zhang Jiao's idea of the 9 degrees of the Great Tao, he will be able to better command the power of the gods, and then Zhang Jiao will naturally obtain the position of a great teacher. The reason why Zhang Jiao designed the 9 degrees of the Great Tao of God Emperor's Tao fruit, the reason why this Tao fruit's ambition is so great, and it almost includes the entire universe, is because this Tao fruit of God Emperor was not designed for himself. So he is not afraid that his ambition will be feared by others. Young Master Mu said with a trembling voice, only the few imperial emperors of the celestial heavens are worthy of such ambition. To command the gods and build the celestial heavens, the 9 degrees of the Great Tao, and to transform into the god of Pangdu. To Zhang Jiao, his ambition is naturally blazing, and he is insolent and overestimating himself. But to the few imperial emperors of the celestial heavens, it is not the same. They are completely qualified to realize this ambition. Yuan Yu thought more. The few who are in power in the celestial heavens are still a little weak. Although Imperial Emperor Ziyang and the others are also Dara, they are far less powerful than Gong Gong, Zhu Rong, Yanzi, Hutu, and Fushi. However, for some reason, after Emperor Heaven fused with the Tao, these powerful beings and veteran imperial emperors gradually faded out of the celestial heavens. They did not have the intention to seize power. Dong Wang Gong is strong enough and has the intention to seize power. He relaxed the suppression of the anti-heaven forces of the primordial world. While destroying the foundation of the celestial heavens, he strengthened his own power and reformed with Emperor Zhuanshu. It should be to exclude the old ministers of the Emperor Heaven and support his own power. On one hand, Emperor Zhuanshu used Dong Wang Gong to settle the old ministers of the Emperor Heaven, On the other hand, he pardoned the dissidents who were suppressed during the time of the Emperor Heaven and established his own foundation. On the other hand, he is also using the influence left behind by the Emperor Heaven to make Dong Wang Gong bear the backlash. It can be said that he has the art of balance and the mind of an emperor. He pulls one side and fights the other. Dong Wang Gong is also willing to be used. Emperor Zhuanxu used it to suppress the old ministers, so he sat back and watched as he gathered his henchmen and promoted his comrades. Now, Imperial Emperor Ziyang and the other newly appointed Imperial Emperors of the Celestial Heavens should be the faction promoted by Dong Wang Gong. Although Dong Wang Gong's henchmen are still advocating for him, Emperor Zhuanxu should have already used the influence left behind by the Emperor Heaven to defeat Dong Wang Gong. Only then will it be his henchman's turn. Young Master Mu is obviously the son of Emperor Zhuanxu's faction. That's why he is wavering between the Emperor Heaven and Dong Wang Gong. Now that Dong Wang Gong has lost power, he might even be banished from the center of power. On one hand, Imperial Emperor Ziyang wants to use Dong Wang Gong's influence. On the other hand, he wants to establish his own faction. However, the overall situation of the reform was established by Dong Wang Gong. In the end, even if the Reform Party wins the overall situation, it will only benefit Dong Wang Gong. Unless Dong Wang Gong is dead. Ziyang, the four immortal slaying swords, the bell of chaos. Ziyang wants to kill Dong Wang Gong. Fan Wuji's mind was like a bolt from the blue. The mystery that shrouded spiritual master Ziyang was revealed. Imperial Emperor Ziyang is not afraid of Emperor Zhuanxu. Although Emperor Zhuanxu is far stronger than them, in terms of Tao and strength, he is far superior to them. But Imperial Emperor Ziyang has colluded with the primordial demon court. The bell of chaos has rung. Emperor Zhuanxu must have fallen into the war with the primordial demon court. Someone in Dara is colluding with Ro. If spiritual master Ziyang is really the future body of Imperial Emperor Ziyang, then his collusion with Ro to borrow the four immortal slaying swords should be for Dong Wang Gong. The Reformist Party is the foundation of Imperial Emperor Ziyang's rule, so they must strengthen the Reformist Party. But Dong Wang Gong is an obstacle to them, usurping the power of the Emperor of Heaven, so they must get rid of him. The biggest weakness of Imperial Emperor Ziyang and the others is their strength. After all, compared to the veteran great mediums, Ziyang's strength is still at the threshold of great mediums. It's enough for him to be the Imperial Emperor. It's impossible for him to control the power of the Emperor of Heaven. The 9 degrees of the Great Tao that Zhang Jiao has planned is just the right opportunity for Imperial Emperor Ziyang. If Ziyang can really take advantage of Zhuanxu's fall and Dong Wang Gong's death to control the power of the Heavenly Court, he can use this opportunity to reverse the process of Pangu's transformation into a god. He can spy on Pangu's throne and cross the threshold of great mediums. This way, with the remaining power of the Heavenly Court, he can barely control it. Zhang Jiao definitely doesn't know the real plan of Imperial Emperor Ziyang. But why is the 9 degrees of the Great Tao that he proposed so coincidentally? That's right. The 9 degrees of the Great Tao is the structure of the Mystic Door's Heavenly Court. If one wants to spy on Pangu and prove the Tao of Pangu, he must obtain the support of the 3 pure deities. Although the 9 degrees of the Great Tao is good, he has to bow to the 3 pure deities. Therefore, Ziyang is still hesitating and hasn't made up his mind. The mastermind behind Zhang Jiao must be the Mystic Door. The Mystic Door hasn't given up on the power of the Heavenly Court. The Mystic Door is preparing to split the Heavenly Court from the inside and establish a theocratic system guided by the Mystic Door. Imperial Emperor Ziyang and the faction of the Mystic Door that is trying to establish the Heavenly Court are forming an alliance. No wonder the future body of Imperial Emperor Ziyang is the righteous One Qi sect. No wonder he will represent the Mystic Door to enter the ultimate. But why do I know so much? These clues. That's right. The Shui-Tu King calmly transmitted his voice to Yuan Yu. Yin Yang Demon Master, the Patriarch is watching you. Yuan Yu's heart rumbled like a clap of thunder. The Shui-Tu transmitted his voice to Yuan Yu. Why did the Emperor of Heaven fuse with the Tao? Isn't it all because of the three pure ones? The Emperor of Heaven is also taking advantage of the situation. This situation is very complicated. Yin-Yang Demon Master, the Patriarch sent you to the One Chi sect as a spy so that you can keep an eye on spiritual master Ziyang. Now that Ziyang has entered the situation, it's time for you to show your might. It's not in vain that the Patriarch often enlightened you and sent us to your side. Ajadi also smiled and said, "That's right, the mystic door is already too strong. If the mystic door establishes the heavenly court and controls the theocratic system, it will be disadvantageous to the demonic Tao. In fact, it's disadvantageous to all of us. Therefore, the witchcraft cult has entered the demonic Tao because the old ministers of the Emperor of Heaven established a connection with us. That's why Empress Hutu let Death Demon go. Everyone has decided the mystic door's ambition to establish the heavenly court will be broken by us, the demonic Tao. Please send Ziyang and his traitors back to heaven." Yuan Yu's heart fell silent, as if he was dead. The more covert the chess piece, the better. The Shuetu king sighed and said, "Therefore, the demon ancestor only arranged for you, Dara, to be involved in the destruction of the heavenly court. The Yin-Yang demon master is an elite of the demonic Tao and a loyal minister of the demon ancestor. I'm sure you won't disappoint the demon ancestor's expectations. How can I be the only chess piece in Patriarch River Styx's plan?" Yuan Yu lamented in his heart. His eyes were filled with tears as he choked and said, "Yuan Yu has received the favor of the demon ancestor. For the sake of the demon ancestor, I will disregard my own safety and disregard my own life." The next moment, the voices of Shui Tu, Wu Sheng, and Yuan Yu sounded in Fan Wujie's ears. Zhang Jiao obtaining the 9 degrees of the Great Tao is actually a conspiracy of the Mystic Door. According to our analysis, Emperor Ziyang has the support of the Mystic Door, and Zhang Jiao, as a henchman recruited by Emperor Ziyang, represents the Mystic Door to mix in the sand. This sky-bearing conference is actually a deal between the Mystic Door and Ziyang while avoiding the attention of the heavenly court. The Shuetu said lightly, "As the backbone of the demonic Tao, of course we can't let the Mystic Door and Ziyang collude under our noses. Therefore, the three of us will secretly help you later to step on that pillar and slap Prince Bo Jun's face. You must get Prince Mu involved. Only by muddying the waters will we have a chance to take advantage of the conflicts in the heavenly court. The Demon Gate is trying to destroy the Celestial Gate's plan to control the heaven court, and Zhengyang Zi is trying to screw over his selfish senior martial brother." Fan Wujie replied, "But what does this have to do with me, Fan Wujie? What benefits do I have?" "The demonic Tao can use the 4 immortal slaying swords once," Shuetu said lightly. "Don't forget, Ro is also the demonic Tao's demon ancestor of destruction." "Deal," Fan Wujie said decisively. The demonic Tao's trump card was very strong, and if he wanted to survive the heavenly court's destruction, he had to find a strong backer. Emperor Ziyang chose the Mystic Door, and if he, Fan Wujie, could escape from this era alive, it would be the greatest benefit. Fan Wujie whispered to Prince Mu. "Prince Mu, I'm sure you don't want to see Zhang Jiao's plan succeed." Prince Mu said lightly, "Emperor Ziyang and my father have a grudge." Fan Wujie bowed his head and said, "I'm willing to defeat this person for Prince Mu." Prince Mu looked at him deeply and said, "Wujie, if you can defeat this person and stop him from reaching the 9 levels of the Great Tao, why can't I?" Chapter 1297. Zhang Liang rode on the chariot and leaped into the air. Surrounded by the ghosts and deities, the wheels of the chariot turned and roared. Banners flew everywhere, and all kinds of laws of Tao and strange phenomena appeared, pulling Zhang Liang around the white jade platform. Countless gods and demons followed behind the chariot with weapons in their hands, and countless demon and barbarian ancestral spirits roared, stirring up a storm of blood. A fierce aura of war came rolling over. Yuan Yu secretly wiped his cold sweat, pulled Fan Wujie's sleeve, and said, "Little brother, do you really have the confidence to defeat him? This guy's ability is not real, but the Path of Peace has really invested a lot in him. Look at those yellow scarf warriors. I'm afraid they have captured all the outstanding disciples of the Path of Peace who died and became heroic spirits in one fell swoop. And those ancestral spirits, how many demon and barbarian tribes did the Path of Peace kill to capture so many ruthless people? Fan Wu Jie held Yuan Yu's hand and said, "Brother, don't say any more. If you still want me to come back alive, you have to help me with everything you have. And you guys." Fan Wu Jie turned around and said to the blood-soaked demon monarch and the lifeless cult leader, "The demon sect wants to stop the celestial sect from colluding with the celestial Emperor Ziyang. If the two of you don't show me what you're capable of, I'll just be embarrassed, but you guys won't be able to explain yourself." Ajadi clenched his teeth and said, "Little brother, why do you say that? I'm already prepared to help you with my most precious treasure. We, the lifeless cult, don't have any good stuff. I can only give you 2 sword moves." The lifeless cult leader was so angry that his face turned red. 2 deep and serene sword lights appeared in his hands. The sword lights were flickering and dim, but it made Fan Wu Jie's heart palpitate. Yuan Yu's legs were numb, and he almost couldn't stand still. Yuan Yu choked for a long time, and then said with difficulty, "Ajadi, this is really the most precious treasure of the Demon Gate." Back then, Shemali borrowed Yuan Tu's sword energy to imitate the 4 immortal slaying swords. Now that the Heavenly Court is ruling the world, we, the Demon Sect, are unable to raise our heads, and we don't dare to lend Yuan Tu's sword energy to you. Otherwise, that Prince Bojun would definitely have something to say. However, when I was imitating the Immortal Execution 4 swords, I used Yuan Tu's Sword Chi Slaughter Great Dao to imitate the might of the Immortal Execution 4 swords. These 2 strands of Sword Chi are incomplete, but they have obtained some essence of the Slaughter Great Dao. You can use this Sword Chi to imitate some of the godly power of the 4 Immortal Execution swords. The Immortal Execution Sword principle is spread in the Mystic Door and the Demon Sect. Dara of the GS Sect imitated the 4 Immortal Execution swords to create many sword principles. The Chan Sect's Immortal Yuding, Heavenly Lord Dao Xing, Guang Qingzi, and Qi Jingjing also have some in the orthodoxy. Therefore, you don't have to be afraid of people asking about its origin. Fan Wu Jie didn't expect that he could get such a ferocious object by extorting. He looked at the 2 strands of Sword Chi in fear. One was the trapping Celestial Sword Ray, and the other was the slaying Celestial Sword Ray. Fan Wu Jie only needed to move his mind slightly, and he could feel the subtle sword will and the sword energy that could kill anything. He only needed to move it slightly, and he could use the sword will to kill anything in his way. Fan Wu Jie kept the treasures in his bag, and he was excited. He raised his head and looked at the other 2, and everyone could see the joy in his eyes. The Shuetu King clenched his teeth, and he reached out to take the heavenly, demonic blood god saber that was hanging on his back, and handed it over. The saber was covered with a layer of deep blood-red color. It was filled with a shocking, murderous aura. The dim blood-red light hit a frightening sharpness, and the blood-red light and the sharpness interweaved with each other to create a bloody, murderous aura. It was like a peerless saber that was mottled with blood, and its sharpness had been polished by time. Fan Wu Jie was touched, and he said, "What did I do to deserve the gift of a divine saber?" The bloody-soaked demon lord was rendered speechless by this scene. Initially, the Shuetu King wanted to say, "I'll lend this saber to you," for the time being, but he could not bring himself to say it at this point. He sighed and thought to himself, "This person has helped the demon sect get into this mess. I'll be generous for now and pretend to give him the saber. When he is no longer useful to the demon sect, I'll find a chance to kill his entire family and take back the saber." Fan Wu Jie stealthily pulled the saber, and the heavenly demonic blood god saber remained motionless in the Shuetu King's hand. The Shuetu King did not let go of the saber and said, "This saber was created by the Palai Taoism of the GS sect and was left behind by the one Qi deity, Yu Yuan. It is called the Blood Saber, and it is a sinister magical weapon that is used to harm the flesh of cultivators. I named it Blood Saber because of my love, so I asked a fellow Taoist of the heavenly demonic blood god saber to help me refine it. It combines the two orthodox Taoist techniques of the heavenly demonic blood god saber. The blood saber, the Jie sect, is not a sharp weapon in the world. It is just stained with a sinister poison, and it dissolves because of the blood injury, but it has lost the sharpness of a good sword. Therefore, I use the tainted blood left behind by the great shaman during the great war of the sorcerer and demon. The great shaman was formed by the impure qi, and his blood essence carried a monstrous, murderous aura. His wounds also contained the sharpness of the great shaman's peerless divine weapon, and this blood wound flowed into the blood sea. It was refined by the source of blood, and the great shaman's murderous aura and the golden qi of the divine weapon merged into one. It was then refined into a strange blood crystal, invisible and formless, with the essence of the blood sea and the blood shadow. It has the same sharpness of the divine weapon, and it was also nourished by the shocking murderous aura of the great shaman in the demon-demon war. With the ancestors' favor, I found such a blood crystal in the blood sea. With the help of the heavenly devil technique, I searched for and nurtured countless devils, making them kill and devour each other. With the heavenly devil-raising venomous insect technique, I refined 7 mysterious and terrifying devils. With the heavenly devil secret scroll, I forged these 7 devils and the blood-dissipating saber into one. After 90,000 years, I sent them to hundreds of tribulation takers. With their hands, I killed countless devils, and only then did I refine this divine weapon. There are 7 heavenly demons sealed in the divine saber, and each of them has their own killer. They are called the heavenly demons' 7 slaughters. They will attack when they see blood, and it is very frightening. And because this saber is too harmful to the harmony of the world, it does not distinguish between friend and foe. Even if the saber owner sees blood on this saber, the heavenly demons will also counterattack. It is very dangerous. Brother, if you can't control it. Don't worry, brother. Fan Wu Jie pressed his hand on Shui Tu King's hand that was holding the saber, firmly and slowly pulled his hand down and said, I don't have the hobby of licking blood from the edge of a saber. Shui Tu King was very reluctant, and with great sadness he let go of the heavenly demon blood divine saber. Now that I have the help of Brother Wu Sheng's immortal slaying sword beam, and Brother Shui Tu's heavenly demon blood divine saber, taking down Zhang Liang is a piece of cake. But if I make Zhang Jiao lose face, and he personally makes a move, I'm afraid I won't be able to defeat him. I wonder what Brother Zheng Yangzi wants to teach me. Fan Wu Jie fixed his gaze on Yuan Yu. Yuan Yu blinked his eyes and said in a low voice, Brother, I have given you an immortal herb before. The lifeless cult master said in a weird tone, This is a different matter. Yuan Yu said in a low voice, Brother Wu Jie, you don't have to return the favor you owe me. From now on, we are even, and we can live happily on our own. How about that? Shui Tu laughed coldly and said, Brother Xingyangzi, back then when you were fishing for the sea, it was just some divine sand, and you dared to extort such a large sum of money for Brother Fan. Now, Brother Fan is helping you to get rid of Reverend Zi Yang's control, and such a great favor is not something you can repay. Now that Brother Fan is going to fight, you are actually not willing to help. Do you still have conscience? Ajadi said coldly, I can't stand it anymore. Shui Tu added, Me too. Both of them, one drew a strand of Yuan Tu's sword qi, and the other had a faint blood-red glow in his hand. Yuan Yu had no choice but to force a smile and said, Brother Wu Jie, I wonder if you still remember the golden fragment of the Chaos Fiend God's relic that you triggered when you opened the stone? With a flip of his palm, a small fragment the size of a fingernail appeared on his fingertip. It was not the fragment that had caused the disturbance that day, but it had the same aura. The golden fragment was not eye-catching. As a golden light appeared on the surface of the fragment, it seemed to cross the void and extend to an unknown dimension in the depths of the void. Fan Wu Jie, Shui Tu, and Wu Sheng were shocked and said, a chaos fiend god's relic. Yuan Yu sighed and said, "Back then, I tried my best to figure out the location of the primal chaos origin stones from the dragon race. Later on, I sneaked into the sinkhole several times and followed the trail of the annihilation storm. I found the same batch of primal chaos origin stones as those primal chaos origin stones and obtained this item. This item was a personal treasure of the chaos fiend god, and it shattered during the battle. That treasure is called the Yuan Yu Golden Bridge, also known as the Tai Chi Golden Bridge. It can stand above wind, earth, water, and fire, and transcend all tribulations and difficulties. Standing on the bridge is invincible. Even if it is just a fragment, it can help you trigger the power of the Chaos Fiend God's relic. Even if Zhang Jiao personally attacks you, he can still save you." Shui Tu said lightly, "If you say that standing on the bridge is invincible, I'm afraid it is just a boast. Otherwise, why would the Chaos Fiend God's relic creator be defeated by another Chaos Fiend God?" Yuan Yu said angrily, "Who are you to interfere in the affairs of the Chaos Fiend Gods? Even if he loses to another Chaos Fiend God. You are just a golden immortal fiend god. What right do you have to say such nonsense?" Fan Wujie ignored their argument and studied the golden fragment carefully. "Isn't the relic of a chaos fiend god an innate spirit treasure?" Shui Tu shook his head and smiled. "Innate spirit treasures are spirit treasures transformed from the essence of a chaos fiend god's relic after his death, or they are natal treasures refined by a chaos fiend god. Even though this treasure was refined by a chaos fiend god, the chaos fiend god who refined it was one of the weakest among the 3,000 chaos fiend gods, and he was not strong in the first place. Also, it was not his natal treasure that he poured his blood, sweat, and tears into. Therefore, it is only a spirit treasure without the innate, inextinguishable spirit light." Yuan Yu said expressionlessly, "Shui Tu, you are neither a chaos fiend god nor Dara, so your knowledge is still shallow. Even though this treasure is not an innate spirit treasure, it already has the potential to become one. It was just unlucky that it was plotted against." Even though Shui Tu King and Ajadi were direct descendants of River Styx, they had only stepped on the threshold of Dara. As for Yuan Yu's identity as the Yin Yang Demon Lord, they were well aware of it. It was fine to tease him a little, as they were the direct disciples of the demon ancestor, so they did not need to care too much about those demonic branches that were raised by stepmothers. But they still had to give face to the Yin Yang Demon Lord. Therefore, after Yuan Yu said a few words, they did not speak anymore, and only smiled at the side. Fan Wujie felt that there was something between them, but his vision was not at that level, so he could not see what was inside. He had taken 3 treasures in a row and was already satisfied. If he continued to extort more, these 3 would probably turn against him. This time, he had to handle it well, or else he would not be able to explain himself in front of these 3 who were bleeding so much. On the White Jade platform, Prince Bo Jun and Zhang Jiao were talking and laughing, praising Zhang Liang as the future pillar of the heavens and the outstanding talent of the lower realm. Prince Bo Jun laughed loudly. "The path of peace pacifies the land, crusades against the disloyal subject for the heavens, and young talents like Zhang Liang and Zhang Bao, they are really the place to educate, to nurture talents for the heavens. I have been ordered by the heavens to inspect the talents of the world. How can I not recommend such talents?" Zhang Jiao bowed and smiled. "If your highness has such intentions, the talents of the world will definitely follow." At this time, someone below the White Jade platform laughed. "If the heavens recommend Zhang Liang and Zhang Bao, how can we not try? If we lose, we will just lose face in front of the elders of Ming Yi. What if we win by luck?" Everyone looked down, and Fan Wujie also stepped onto the Rainbow Bridge, walking forward step by step. Prince Bo Jun and Zhang Jiao did not mind, but the captain of the Milky Way Navy beside them laughed. "This person is interesting. He is very brave." Someone else sighed. "What a pity for such a brave youth." A celestial being whose eyes were glowing with a dark blue godly light glanced at Fan Wujie, and suddenly he let out a surprised gasp. Someone beside him asked him about it, and he answered with a bewildered tone, "My divine eyes are formed naturally, and I can see through the past and the future, the ins and outs of everything. I just wanted to see his age, to see if he could be considered as an outstanding young man. I didn't want to let the old cucumber paint him green, which would embarrass the prince." Unexpectedly, the captain of the Milky Way Navy said, "What did you find out, God Lord?" The god shook his head. "This person is indeed a young talent. There is no one here younger than him. From what I see, he will only be born after the endless tribulations." The captain of the Milky Way Navy became even more interested. "He is actually a future Tao Lord who has the characteristics of Dara?" Fanwu Jie simply walked onto the white jade platform, and someone below said in confusion, "Sigh, isn't that the young man who explained to us just now? Since he knows Zhang Liang's abilities, why does he still dare to go up?" Yuan Yu asked in a low voice. Xuetu's expression was solemn. Could it be that he saw through Zhang Liang's background, and he thinks he is not inferior to anyone, so he went up to take advantage? Ajadi shook his head and denied that Zhang Liang is a genius, and he is being nurtured by his brother from the Tao of Peace. Now that he is ascending with the Tao of Peace's divine Tao foundation, no one can take advantage of him. Yuan Yu sighed. "I think that youth is going to suffer. It's fine if it's a fight between the young geniuses, but that Zhang Liang is ascending with the Tao of Peace's foundation. Who can match him? Isn't this a competition of background? I don't think that youth is famous. And even though he is a golden immortal Tao Lord at such a young age, how can he fight against the Tao of Peace's foundation? The foundation of a sect's strength?" Young Master Mu joined in the fun, pretending to be indignant. Xuetu shook his head. The Tao of Peace did not push Zhang Liang to suppress the other geniuses of the brilliant vastness region, but to use this opportunity to show off to the heavenly courts. Zhang Liang ascended with the Tao of Peace's foundation to prove the Tao of Peace's hard work over the years. He rashly went up and wrecked their place. Even if he suffers, who can he blame? The surrounding people saw that they had already said all the right and wrong things. What else could they do other than shouting 666? Hence, the sounds of 666 rang out incessantly, spreading everywhere. When it reached Zhang Liang's ears, he pondered for a moment, then retracted the great Tao 9 degrees divine power. He said to Fan Wu Jie, who was walking over, "Brother, you are an outstanding talent of your time. You have the desire to compete, but it is also due to your emotions. How can I not understand when Liang Iyo is in high spirits and does not fall behind others? If he were to rely on his sect's power and use the Tao of Peace's great divine power, he would be bullying you. How about this? I will not use the Tao of Peace's supreme divine power. I will only use my normal abilities to defeat you." Fan Wu Jie thought for a moment, then cautiously advised, "Use whatever abilities you have. Otherwise, I am afraid you will not have the chance to use them again, and you will feel indignant. After all, even I cannot control the immortal execution sword Qi." Zhang Liang was stunned. Then he shook his head and smiled. "You really do not know the meaning of death." Fan Wu Jie sighed. "Yes, I do not know if you will live or die when my sword strikes. So, use whatever abilities you have, and use all your strength, lest I do not know the severity of the situation, and I do not know whether you will live or die." Fan Wu Jie felt slightly guilty. Zhang Liang did not use the great Tao 9 degrees, and Fan Wu Jie did not use the trump cards that Yuan Yu and the others gave him. It was the fairest way to defeat him with his own abilities. But Fan Wu Jie's goal was to break the great Tao 9 degrees, to slap Zhang Jiao in the face, and Zhang Liang's performance was not important. So, he had to make Zhang Liang use his full strength, and then Fan Wu Jie would use the immortal execution sword Qi to break it, so that Zhang Jiao would not be able to touch them for a while. Fan Wu Jie felt that this was too much. This was too much of a bully for Zhang Jiao and Zhang Liang. As the direct disciple of the demonic path of slaughter, he used the Yuan sword to imitate the immortal execution 4 swords to bully the self-created mystique of the path of peace. Wasn't this bullying? Zhang Liang clasped his hands behind his back and said, "You can use your full strength. I will do as I please. If you are worthy of me using my full strength, or even having to use the great Tao 9 degrees, or even more, Zhang Liang will not be stubborn." Fan Wujie sighed to himself and said, "Then I'll give you a chance. If you do not use the great Tao 9 degrees after I defeat you, and do not use the path of peace, I will not use the immortal execution sword Qi." He raised his hand and pointed out with a finger. The void above the white jade platform seemed to freeze at this moment. This was not an illusion, but a real freeze. The captain of the Milky Way Navy paused as he raised his wine cup. He said with some surprise, "Cosmic light, true water?" The time light true water was the only innate true water that did not change much between the primordial era and the era of the heavens. This was because the time light true water was the symbol of the water characteristic of time. Time was like water, and the other innate true waters would degrade as the universe deteriorated and the primordial era shattered, but the time light true water would not. Of course, when the time light true water was used as time, there was no shortage of it, but there were not many that were truly refined into the form of the time light true water. The special form of the time light true water in the primordial era was also countless times more abundant than in the era of the heavens. However, this had nothing to do with the time light water technique that Fan Wujie displayed at this moment. This was the true control of time like water, intercepting the fragment of the time light where Zhang Liang was at, and sealing the space where Zhang Liang was. In all directions, the past and the future could not escape from Fan Wujie's finger. Chapter 1298. In Zhang Liang's eyes, everything around him seemed to have disappeared. This finger had pulled the entire space-time, and he felt like he was being pulled out of the river of time by this finger. Zhang Jiao's eyes flashed, and he pressed his palm on the table in front of him. The expert who cultivates the Tao of time is not from this world. Is he from the past or the future? Zhang Liang found that his past was getting closer to the present. Zhang Liang had cultivated for tens of thousands of years, and if it was tens of thousands of years ago when he had just become an immortal, it would have taken him tens of thousands of years to reach the present. In theory, Zhang Liang could have used his sword tens of thousands of years ago to kill the enemy in the present. This sword only needed this period of time to not be destroyed. Now that he was using his sword tens of thousands of years ago in the past, he only needed 5,000 years to reach the present. His past was being pulled to the present by Fan Wujie's finger. A primordial unity, mystic, Tao, fruit expert. Zhang Liang was moved. Primordial unity, mystic, Tao, fruit experts had already obtained the characteristics of Dara, and a part of their power would never fade. Under normal circumstances, Zhang Liang would not be able to fight back against such an expert. This was not a difference in power levels, but a difference in the nature of life. If Zhang Liang fought with a primordial unity, mystic Tao fruit expert, their karma would intertwine, and with the power of a Tao Lord, once they fought with all their might, there would definitely be space-time disturbances. Then the past of the two Tao Lords would definitely be able to see their fight in the future. Then the primordial unity mystic Tao fruit expert would not have a weak past, and his realm would be proven forever. The primordial unity mystic Tao fruit expert would be able to easily find an enemy who is destined to fight him in the future, and use the primordial unity mystic Tao fruit expert to kill the enemy when they were weak. So, if two Tao Lords with similar power, one who obtained the characteristics of Dara and had the primordial unity mystic Tao fruit expert, will be able to effortlessly kill the enemy who did not obtain the characteristics of Dara and the primordial unity mystic Tao fruit expert. A primordial unity mystic Tao fruit expert's past, even if it was just an infant, could still use the power and wisdom of the future to obtain the characteristics of Dara. Even if he faced an enemy 1,000,000 times stronger than him, he only needed to project the primordial unity mystic Tao fruit into the past and use the difference in space-time to accumulate power. If a primordial arcane Tao Lord wanted to kill a powerful foe a few 100,000 years in the future, as long as he swung his sword at the powerful enemies in the void every day. After hundreds of thousands of years of swinging his sword, when the time came for the duel, he would naturally be able to explode with boundless sword light, gathering the sword chi that he had accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years, instantly erupting with power that was countless times stronger than before. And he would be able to kill powerful enemies who were far more powerful than him. Therefore, the Tai I Xian number was not a realm of power, but a sublimation of the essence. Under such circumstances, even if Zhang Liang's magical power and divine arts were 1,000 times stronger than Fan Wujie's, he would not be a match for Fan Wujie, who could transcend time and space to attack him. However, Zhang Liang had someone backing him up, and the world did not exist in isolation. At this moment, on the White Jade stage, no one could stop Fan Wujie from attacking him. But if Fan Wujie wanted to attack him in the past, he would not be able to get past Zhang Jiao. Even Fan Wujie could not appear in the past. The current Fan Wujie did not exist in the past. If Fan Wujie existed in the past, Zhang Jiao could attack him. With Zhang Jiao's superior Tai I Xian number Dao fruit, it would not be difficult for him to leave behind some backup plans. By then, it would be equivalent to Fan Wujie facing two Dao Lords at the same time, and there was also Zhang Jiao helping Zhang Liang in the past. Therefore, the only flaw in the Tai I Xian number Dao fruit and Dara's characteristics was the blockade of experts, who also had the characteristics of Dara. But not only was Fan Wujie a Tai I Xian number Dao fruit, he also had some of the characteristics of Dara, and he also cultivated the innate time light Dao seed. Captain Sheen of the Milky Way Navy praised, "What a clever finger!" Below the White Jade platform, Yuan Yu couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. Ever since Fan Wujie's journey to the bottomless ruins, although he didn't seem to have changed much on the surface, he had actually improved at a godly speed. Looking at the puzzled Prince Mu and the surrounding crowd, he explained, "Wujie's finger has slowed down the flow of the cosmic light true water. On the surface, his finger seemed to lock onto Zhang Liang so that he could not avoid the second finger. But in fact, he created a relatively sealed space, collapsed it, and slowed down the flow of time, creating an isolated world that included him and Zhang Liang. What we see now is just what Wujie let us see. In fact, the space around the White Jade platform has become an isolated small world. It can be said to be a world. But what is the point of forming a world?" Prince Mu asked in confusion. The crowd was also thinking. Some could already tell that Fan Wujie had already attained the Tai I Xian fruit. Because the Tai I Xian fruit was blocked by the heaven, most of the wandering cultivators did not know about it, even though the anti-heaven forces had encouraged and publicized it. Immediately, there were people who explained the mysteries of the Tai I Xian fruit to them in a low voice. When everyone heard that the Tai I Xian fruit could be used in the past, they were suddenly enlightened. No wonder an unknown kid dared to challenge the young genius of the Way of Peace. So his cultivation level was higher than the young genius of the Way of Peace, Zhang Liang. Immediately, there were people who changed their attitudes. Initially, although everyone did not have any ill intentions towards Fan Wujie, who had suddenly challenged them, they did not think too highly of him. They felt that he was seeking his own humiliation. But now, it was an even more talented genius who had come to challenge the original elite. This was no longer considered to be overestimating his own capabilities. It was the spirit of a young man. When they heard that the Tai I Xian fruit could bully ordinary Taoists like it was child's play, and that Zhang Liang was only able to protect his weak past thanks to his good brother Zhang Jiao's protection, causing the battle of Tai I Xian fruit to fail, everyone felt that it was unfair for him. The Shuetu king shook his head in the crowd and said, "The Tai I Xian fruit is already higher than ordinary Taoists. And now that the Way of Peace and Prince Bojun have protected Zhang Liang's past, it is like being beaten with one hand tied up. This is too much." Beside him, Ajadi said coldly, "What do you mean by bullying? Attacking Zhang Liang's past when he was weak, isn't that bullying? And what is the Tai I Xian fruit? Why don't I know there is such a realm? Oh, the Emperor of Heaven had already set up the laws of heaven in ancient times. Tai I is an illegal realm. There is no such realm in this world. Do you have a different opinion, fellow Taoist? The Shui-Tu king murmured, being able to attack is also a divine art of our generation. If we can't even use the stronger divine arts in this battle, then what is the point of competing? Yuan Yu scolded. Say no more. The heaven has its own rules. Tai isn't a legal realm. It is reasonable for it to be banned in the arena of the heaven. There is nothing wrong with it. Moreover, how can a young expert who can attain the characteristics of Dara be restricted by such rules? The profundity of that finger just now has bypassed all these restrictions. This finger has set up a boundary, isolating the inside from the outside. It has separated the two's battle space. The flow of time and the boundary of space are different from the environment outside, and the karmic connection with the outside world has been severed. Of course, with the strength of Prince Bo Jun and sect Master Zhang Jiao, breaking this boundary is just a matter of turning over a palm. But now that they are fighting fairly, if Zhang Jiao breaks Fan Wu Jie's boundary, wouldn't he be openly interfering with their fair battle? Therefore, even though Fan Wu Jie is restricted by the rules of the battle and can't fight in the past, he has used the rules to create a relatively independent world. In that world, the flow of time-light true water is slower. The flow of time is slower than the outside world, and the sequence of time is also different. The Tao of time is incomparably mysterious, and one of them is called the law of time of all heavens. Yuan Yu lowered his voice and said, all heavens are relatively independent worlds. They are all in the river of time. But because of the difference in the flow of time and space, they are relatively independent in the frame of reference of time of all heavens. In other words, the time of the two worlds is relatively independent. There is no connection, no comparison or reference. The greatest advantage of Fan Wu Jie's finger setting up a boundary is that we can't observe the time of that small world, because the outside world and the inside world are in different frames of reference. Once we try to determine the time of that small world, we will break that world and interfere with their battle. DZ Mu suddenly understood and said, this finger setting up a boundary, making the time of that small world relatively independent. In reality, from the vast river of time of all heavens, there is a temporary parallel branch. The branch's flow speed and capacity are meaningless, or in other words, only when the branch returns to the main branch of time of all heavens will it regain its meaning. You have grown up. Yuan Yu looked at Fan Wu Jie, who had set up a boundary and broken the stability of time of all heavens, and sighed. Shameless. Zhang Liang looked at his past. The newborn baby stared at Zhang Liang angrily, causing him to go into a frenzy. The essence of time of all heavens is the movement of matter, but time of all heavens does not exist. What exists is the movement of matter. This is the essence of the great Tao of time that I have comprehended. In the ultimate ruins, I have observed the changes of time of all heavens under all kinds of extreme conditions, and I have confirmed this point. First of all, time does not exist for isolated matter. When there is no external force acting on matter, it will definitely maintain a uniform linear movement. And when there is no reference, it is impossible to determine whether it is moving or not. In other words, to determine the movement, there must be at least two mutually referential existences. Isolated existence cannot determine the movement, and therefore, time does not exist. Therefore, time cannot exist in isolation. Therefore, time-light true water cannot exist in isolation from matter. Time-light true water is not a matter, but an attribute of matter. As long as there is a movement of matter, there must be time-light true water. Therefore, time-light true water is actually a pseudo-innate matter. In the ultimate ruins, I have seen time-light true water disappear in an isolated system with my own eyes. I found that in the center of the ultimate ruins, time-light true water does not exist. At that time, I understood that the time-light true water that I condensed as the existence of innate true water looks like a matter and also acts like a matter, but in reality, it is an attribute that changes the state of motion of matter. It is a relative movement of matter. Movement needs a reference object to exist. In this completely independent world, there are only the two of us. Therefore, we are each other's reference objects. There is only one frame of reference. In an isolated system, the existence of two mutually referential existences actually determines the other's time. In this place, your time exists because of me, and my time also exists because of you. For example, in a space with only two wooden blocks, one of the wooden blocks suddenly moves away from the other wooden block, and at that moment, time changes, and then the wooden block suddenly moves back. Do you know what happens? Zhang Liang looked at Fan Wujie, who trapped him in an isolated world, and said impatiently, "What are you talking about?" Fan Wujie sighed deeply. "It seems like you do not understand time. It is okay, I will tell you. When the wooden block returns, time flows backward." "What?" Zhang Liang looked at Fan Wujie like he was looking at a madman. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Just as the words left his mouth, he was suddenly stunned, and then he looked at Fan Wujie in fear. At this time, the way he looked at Fan Wujie was no longer the way he looked at a madman. Instead, it was like he was looking at something extremely terrifying, some kind of monster that was completely beyond his understanding. Just now, that period of time disappeared. They returned to the beginning, as if the conversation just now was just a hallucination in Zhang Liang's imagination. What is going on? Zhang Liang's entire body was drenched in cold sweat, and at this time, he realized that the person standing in front of him seemed to have something that was beyond his imagination. "Do you still not understand?" Fan Wujie said lightly, "Just now I made my own time flow backward for a period of time. In other words, I changed my own state and became like a few breaths ago, and your time also changed along with me. The Tai I Xian number, or should I say the characteristic of Dara, in essence, is able to independently prove time. Or it can be called the Tai I counterproof. An existence who has the characteristic of Dara, who has proved the Tai I Xian number, in a space where only he exists, in an independent frame of reference, can use his own thoughts and thoughts to prove the existence of time, to independently prove time. This is the difference between the Tai I Xian number and you in essence. Before achieving Tai I in an isolated system, in an empty universe, time is stagnant, and time does not exist. But in an isolated system, in a universe where only Tai I exists, Tai can disprove the existence of time and cause changes to happen to itself. It can be, in my opinion, Tai I cannot describe this realm, and this realm should be called to achieve the I Xian number. The so-called I Xian number is to be able to change itself without external force. This goes against the nature of the movement of matter, and that is why it has surpassed the Tai I Xian number, surpassed the laws, and obtained a trace of the characteristic of Dara. Anything that requires an external force to change will not be able to grasp time. Just like you, without my external force, without my frame of reference, you will not be able to define your own movement. If you cannot determine your own movement, then time does not exist. So in this isolated system, we are mutually referential and mutually determine each other's time. But because I have grasped my own time, I achieve the I Xian number and do not rely on the frame of reference to move, and do not rely on the relative to determine time. In the same frame of reference, between two existences that are mutually referential, one of them can determine its own time, and can be I, and become an independent variable. Then the state of the other existence is actually a dependent variable that is determined by the other. Fan Wujie looked at Zhang Liang, who did not understand, and smiled. In truth, he had experienced the journey to the ultimate, and only understood this after his own Tao seed sprouted. The reason why the characteristic of Dara was so difficult to find was because it was difficult to have a frame of reference that did not rely on anything in the outside world. This frame of reference was called the absolute space-time. Without the absolute space-time, it would be difficult to determine one's own time. One would be confused by external forces that constantly changed oneself, and one would believe that one's changes came from oneself and not from an external force. One would not be able to recognize that oneself could not exist without external forces, and one would believe that oneself was independent of time. One would believe that oneself could still exist and change in a world where there was nothing but oneself. Most Tao Lords believe that a world where there was nothing but oneself was a world of absolute darkness, a world where there was nothing but consciousness. This was the first obstacle to attaining the characteristic of Dara. This was because a world where there was nothing but oneself had no movement, and there was no time. Without movement, there was no movement, and there was no movement of consciousness. Consciousness also depended on movement, and so even if a Tao Lord entered such a world, he would not be able to realize it, and so a Tao Lord would not be able to see time stop. In truth, the independent existence that did not rely on anything in the outside world was the characteristic of Dara. Through the absolute space-time, the Tao Lord determined one's own time, or rather, grasped one's own movements. Then, in the absolute space-time, one would have the opportunity to divide oneself into two within the absolute space-time. The original self in the absolute space-time only had 0, and the Tao Lord needed to complete the change from 0 to 1 in the absolute space-time. Then, the Tao Lord self will be able to constantly change between 0 and 1 in the absolute space-time. Next, one would have to make use of the constant changes between 0 and 1. From its simplest changes, they would gradually become more complicated. In the end, they would be able to accommodate the Tao Lord's enormous self. This was a huge project. Fortunately, Emperor Shi had summed up the principles of change and created the Tao of changes. According to the Tao of changes, the Tao Lord's changes would gradually become more complicated, and in the end, he would be completed in the absolute space-time. In a situation where there was no reference, he would not rely on external forces to change. He would even be able to carry out complex thinking. The difficulty of this was roughly equivalent to a computer that, without any external forces, would be able to type a 1 and then create a code that would change its own fundamental logic. The first step was difficult, and every step that followed would be as difficult as the first step. It was so difficult that even the elites of the demonic path like Shui Tu King and Ajadi had to rely on Fan Wu Jie's cosmic vine, which was an absolute space-time reference. They had already found a way to use 0 and 1 to create a huge variable that could accommodate the self. This was the Fushi Tao of changes. Through the cultivation of the Tao of changes, they had mastered the method to use the simplest two variables to form a self. However, they still lacked the change from 0 to 1. In other words, it was the first step of 1 and 2. It was equivalent to two people who had learned to take the second step to the end, but did not know how to take the first step. In the end, they finally obtained the absolute space-time reference and grasped the essence of their own movement. One step, followed by a quick jog, proved the Tai E number and obtained the characteristics of Dara. In fact, the absolute space-time was Dara, and there was a shortcut to this step. By refining the innate spirit treasure and obtaining the innate spirit light, one could easily obtain the reference of the absolute space-time. In fact, in the absolute frame of reference, the innate spirit light was a 1, and the self was a 0. After completing this step, one could return and change the self into 0 and 1. In other words, any existence that refined the innate spirit treasure would be able to obtain the characteristics of Dara. Fan Wu Jie manifested the great divine power of the river of time and reincarnation, appearing in the world as a reincarnated body. In the isolated system, Fan Wu Jie's time was rolled inward, and in a point of time that did not exist in the future, he extended a reincarnation, a complete life process from birth to death. Affected by the change of his reference, Zhang Liang's time was rolled inward as well. Zhang Liang looked at his past and future with a face of despair as they rolled toward the present from the two ends of the river of time. In the end, he became a strange existence that existed only in the present, but also in the past and future, appearing at this point in time. Now, Zhang Liang was a worm monster that was extremely weak in both front and back. Fan Wu Jie slashed at his past, when he was weak. About 20,000 years, Zhang Liang's past and future in the other timelines had to be protected with all his might. The Zhang Liang in the infant stage could even be blown away by the wind, and once the Zhang Liang in the past died, the Zhang Liang in the later timelines would die as well. Just like a worm, once it was attacked, the rest of its body would break off and fall off. Fan Wujie's past and future were extremely powerful, and he had the great divine power of reincarnation, which allowed him to change his reincarnation at will. No matter how many times Fan Wujie reincarnated, he was still Fan Wujie. Zhang Liang only had one reincarnation, and if he died in this life, he would no longer be Zhang Liang. The Shui Tu king shook his head and said, "We have all underestimated Fan Wujie. Maybe he doesn't even need our help to kill Zhang Liang, who has the foundation of the Tao of Peace's divine authority." Yuan Yu shook his head and said, "Wu Jie is indeed impressive this time, but Zhang Jiao has not made his move yet. It's still too early to say such things. The 9 degrees of the Great Tao is a great divine power that the mystic door prepared to support the Emperor of Heaven. So how could it be so simple? Although this should only be the attitude of some people in the mystic door, with the support of those people, the strength of the Tao of Peace would not be so weak." Chapter 1299. The white jade platform was silent. Suddenly, an old man opened his mouth and said, "Imperial Prince, this white jade platform contention is a place for the young elites of the bright barbaric region to display their talents. However, an unknown powerhouse has drawn a boundary to deceive people. Isn't this a violation of the Heavenly Court's original intention of selecting talents? Please allow me to remove this curtain so that it can be seen as fair." Crown Prince Bo Jun didn't say anything, but he was obviously tempted. Seeing that Crown Prince Bo Jun didn't object, the old man became bolder. He cupped his fists and said, "Then I'll be so bold as to break this boundary." Below the platform, Yuan Yu said indignantly, "That finger drawing a boundary is obviously a part of that mysterious expert's supreme divine ability. In a fight of magical powers, there are many that can create their own domains. How can this grandly interfere in a fair duel between two people? In this case, there's no need to use any divine ability that can create a domain. Outrageous. They're clearly bullying others with their power." In the pleasure boat below the platform, little Qing, who was watching the fight from the window, clenched her fists and slammed them on the window, scolding angrily. "The road of peace is so shameless. Sister, those 4 people we met before are indeed not simple. If any one of them went up, Zhang Liang would not be able to resist. And that young man who looks like a son of an aristocratic family is actually a primordial unity immortal. And he's only the youngest of those 4. I wonder how powerful his 3 brothers are, and if they are comparable to that Zhang Jiao." The woman in white said solemnly, "Little Qing, lower your voice. These 4 young masters are not simple. From what I've observed just now, that young Master Wujie who went up might be an expert from the future. An expert who can cross time and space to attack is a very taboo. Not everyone can casually travel from the future to the present." Imperial Prince Bo Jun looked coldly at the slightly agitated crowd below the white jade platform. Of course, he didn't have any misgivings. What a joke! When had the Heavenly Court ever cared about the opinions of these itinerant ants? As long as there was a reasonable reason, he didn't mind openly siding with one side. Normally, he would still care about his reputation, lest others gossip about him. But the deal with the Road of Peace was related to a very important plan of his father's, so he couldn't allow it to be ruined. Imperial Prince Bo Jun coldly looked at Zhang Jiao. He couldn't even handle such a small matter. His own younger brother had been slapped in the face, yet he still needed him, the emissary of the Heavenly Court, to help him. Crown Prince Bo Jun's evaluation of Zhang Jiao dropped drastically. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Zhang Jiao appear, cupping his fists and bowing deeply, saying, "Your Highness, please wait. Right now, the battle on the stage is in a stalemate, and victory and defeat have not been decided. If we were to call a halt and intervene in advance, It would be unavoidable for others to say that your majesty is interfering in a fair duel between the younger generation, and it would be impossible to determine a winner. From what I can see, both young talents still have strength to spare. The battle has just begun. So why is your highness so anxious? How could Imperial Prince Bo Jun not know that Zhang Jiao was reminding him that Zhang Liang still had a trump card? He waved his sleeves and swept the table in front of him, saying, "Very well, then I shall quietly watch the two talents decide who is stronger." Facing Fan Wu Jie's reincarnation Dharma body, Zhang Jiao attacked at the same time in countless time and space. He punched out, and it was as if he'd been punched 1,000,000 times, condensed at this moment, and the entire small world was crumbling. His fists pierced through layers of space, and the void shattered in front of Fan Wu Jie's fists like glass cracking. Zhang Liang roared madly, boom. A loud sound rang out. Zhang Liang drove the war chariot, and the wheels of the chariot rolled, carrying countless god kingdoms. The Yin lands created by the ancestor spirits, the palaces where the heroic spirits resided, the blessed lands managed by the earthly gods, and even the god kingdoms created by true gods seemed to have been opened. At this moment, Zhang Liang was like a true god, accepting the worship of countless ghost gods and ancestor spirits. The Yin lands of each ancestor spirit contained the faith and souls of countless demons and barbarians. Countless faith and the will power of billions of living beings surged into Zhang Liang's body. At this moment, Zhang Liang had become a god. Wherever his realm god went, the Yin lands of the ancestor spirits, the heroic spirits of the disciples of the Tao of Peace, the foreign shrines, the true bodies of the earthly gods, and the countless believers' souls and living beings behind them all prostrated themselves in worship. The power of will, under the effect of the 9 degrees of the great Tao, turned into godly power and turned into yellow scars that fell on the heads of countless living beings. Billions of souls, countless living beings, all turned into yellow scarf warriors. Their magic power, blood chi, will power, faith, and everything they had were offered to Zhang Liang. Zhang Liang's magic power had risen to a shocking level. With a single strike, he was able to withstand Brahma Wu Jie's combined attack from countless spacetimes. Zhang Liang had transformed all of the foundation of the Tao of Peace's godly authority into the Yellow Scarf Strongmen. These Yellow Scarf Strongmen were his magic power, his divine ability. The divine ability that Zhang Jiao had created was unimaginably terrifying. Fan Wu Jie's magic power was the vital qi that he had painstakingly cultivated, but Zhang Liang's magic power was that of ghosts, ancestral spirits, and all living beings. He had turned all living beings into yellow scarf warriors and used their power and wisdom as his own magic power. Fan Wu Jie's magic power needed to be cultivated, and he had to painstakingly refine his vital qi before he could brand his own mark, so that his magic power could be used freely. But how could the power of vital qi compare to the power of ghosts and gods? How could the wisdom of pure magic power compare to the wisdom of living beings? In terms of the quality of the most basic unit of magic power, Fan Wu Jie had lost. Zhang Liang's 9 degrees of the great Tao required the yellow scarf warriors to give everything they had, using the living beings and ghosts and gods as magic power, containing their wisdom and gathering their power, easily crushing the vital qi that Fan Wu Jie controlled. At this moment, the terrifying power of the 9 degrees of the great Tao was displayed vividly. Everything that Zhang Liang saw turned into the laws of the great Tao. You really think you are smart. Even if you can attack in any time and space, you are no match for the countless ghosts and gods of the Tao of Peace. How many time and space can you attack at the same time? 100,000? 1,000,000? Among the ancestral spirits I control, there are 50,000 golden, immortal Tao Lords. Each of them has devoured the souls of countless monsters and barbarians. There are also the yellow scarf warriors of the Tao of Peace, 3,000 Tao Lords. I alone have the power of 1,000,000 Tao Lords. If you had not set up a boundary to deceive others, I would not have dared to use the great divine power created by the Tao of Peace in front of the patrollers of the heavenly courts. Zhang Liang said coldly. Then let me use the supreme divine power that my brother, Zhang Jiao, comprehended for a period of time to send you to your grave. Open a new heaven, bring peace. The heavens are dead. The yellow sky shall rise. Nomological laws appeared on the bodies of the countless yellow-scarved strongmen, interweaving to form a mysterious world. This world was extremely noble and high above. It contained all the nomological laws and great Tao, but it was formed by countless believers and ghostly immortals interweaving their faith with the divine kingdom. It followed the order of the great Tao, 9 degrees, and interweaved according to a mysterious method. This was the new heaven opened by the Tao of Peace, a heavenly realm. The yellow sky. The Tao of Peace used the yellow scarf warriors as the source of power and pioneered the use of believers and ghosts and gods as the basic units of magic power. The countless yellow scarf warriors were united, using the endless potential and power of living beings to open up a world. Fan Wu Jie was moved. All living beings are united. This is the art of the Emperor of Heaven. Back then, the Celestial Emperor united all the living beings of the human race with one heart, raised the crimson flag, and defeated the high and mighty ancient gods, knocking them down from their divine altars. He even used the endless potential of all living beings to forge a new heaven. The Emperor Hong family united all living beings to open up great heaven. For the Hong Jun Emperor of Heaven, how dare you? Fan Wu Jie shouted. The heavens are dead. The yellow sky shall rise. They see the 9 heavens created by the Emperor of Heaven as the old heavens, and want to overthrow the rule of the Emperor of Heaven, establish a new heaven, and establish the so-called yellow sky rule of the Tao of Peace. But the Emperor of Heaven's living beings are united, the unwillingness of the human race to perish, the roar of the future and hope. The blood and tears shed by the ancestors of the human race for the sake of the human race's strength, the world that the human race wants to create together. And while the Tao of Peace recognized the endless potential of living beings, it only used the art of foolishness to control them. The Emperor of Heaven's living beings are dragons, and everyone is a dragon, and everyone is a god, which is why they have endless power, while the Tao of Peace uses faith and faith to control them are fools, worshipping you as a god. How can a god worshipped by a bunch of fools have the power to change heaven and earth when compared to the gods of all living beings? It is too early for your yellow sky to replace the heavens. If the power of faith comes from ignorance, then it is not worth mentioning because the potential of all living beings lies in their wisdom. Fan Wu Jie laughed. If the heavens did not give birth to teacher, the ages would be like a long night. Stars enter the Milky Way, saints emerge. The cosmic light, true water, transformed into the Milky Way, and countless Fan Wu Jie attacked from different time and space, simulating the different phenomena he had experienced in the prehistoric wastelands. No matter what the Emperor of Heaven's original intentions were, he did create an era where everyone could pursue their dreams and hope for the sake of the human race and all living beings. The Emperor of Heaven rules the world and establishes the laws of virtue. Meritorious service with heaven and earth is called virtue. Teaching all living beings, unlocking their endless wisdom, is called morality. Leading all living beings forward, establishing order, and making all living beings united is called holy virtue. Succeeding generations, inheriting the virtues of their ancestors, is called in virtue. Following the general trend of the human heart, cultivating one's character, caring for oneself, and helping the world is called good fortune. These 5 virtues are the laws of the Emperor of Heaven to rule the world, to be able to break your yellow heaven evil art. All living beings united, great Tao of holy virtue. Fan Wu Jie condensed a sliver of the light of holy virtue, and the cosmic light true water turned into a clear light, turning into a river of stars that fell among the yellow, turbaned strongmen, immediately destroying the order established by the 9 spheres of the great Tao. The white light of holy virtue and the green light of moral virtue rippled out, and the yellow scarf on the heads of the yellow-turbaned strongmen fell off. The demons and barbarians washed away their evil auras, and the countless passages of moral virtue boosted their wisdom, dissolving the strict divine order of the 9 spheres of the great Tao. There was no hierarchy, and it interrupted the flow of faith and wish power of the believers to the ancestral spirits and ghosts, and then from the lower-level ghosts and gods to the higher level, and finally to Zhang Liang's body. The wish power of the yellow-turbaned strongmen worked on their bodies, opening their wisdom and increasing their power. The divine order created by the 9 spheres of the great Tao was shaken. Fan Wu Jie did not use the divine arts that he was good at, but used the merit law created by the Emperor of Heaven during the primitive era to break the law of virtue that the way of peace stole from the Emperor of Heaven. All beings are one heart, and forcibly created the great art of yellow sky. It was because the law of the way of peace was stolen from the Emperor of Heaven, but the idea and the law were too shallow. So once it met the real master, it immediately collapsed. The most real thing in this world was the law, and when the fake law met the real law that was honed, it was like a stick meeting a real god. It collapsed at the first touch and could not withstand a single blow. After the light of the holy virtue and the clear light of virtue dissolved the 9 spheres of the great Tao, Fan Wu Jie exerted his power in countless time and space at the same time, and killed one of Zhang Liang's real bodies in the time and space of his old age. Zhang Liang's existence immediately shrunk by 1/3, and the essence of his life was suddenly shortened by 1/3. Although the people outside the White Jade stage could not see the situation of Fan Wu Jie establishing the inner world, but the light and shadow that was revealed was enough to explain some things. Zhang Liang's breath suddenly weakened, and it even revealed an aura of life decline, and the weather outside immediately changed that Captain Sheen of the Milky Way Navy turned and asked the god with unparalleled divine eyes beside him, "Why did Zhang Liang's life suddenly weaken?" The god looked seriously for a long time, and then answered, "Zhang Liang's future body was killed, and he lost 1/3 of his lifespan." For the first time, Zhang Jiao's expression showed an obvious change, but he still did not lose his composure. Yuan Yu, who was below the stage, saw this, and he had a guess in his heart. Zhang Jiao really prepared a trump card for Zhang Liang. I don't know. In the next moment, the small world that was established as the inner world suddenly shattered, and a majestic power descended, instantly sweeping across the White Jade stage. The White Jade stage that the celestial heavens used to welcome the banquet of immortals, the treasure of creation, suddenly sank dozens of feet, and an ancient and heavy aura leaked out. The entire White Jade stage, which had not moved for a long time after being bombarded by Zhang Liang and Fan Wu Jie, began to tremble at this moment. It was unknown how many immortals fell from their mounts, and countless prehistoric mutants trembled, and in an instant they could not even stand up. Innate spiritual treasure. Yuan Yu stood up abruptly. Shuetu King's expression also changed, and he said, "It's actually an innate spiritual treasure." Ajadi's face turned pale, and he said, "The mystic door is indeed rich and overbearing, giving a dog to an innate spiritual treasure to use." Prince Mu was so shocked that he could not even hold the jade cup in his hand steadily, and the jade cup slipped to the ground. Prince Mu hurriedly caught it, and he screamed, "It's actually an innate spiritual treasure. Am I the prince? Or is Zhang Liang the prince? Could it be that the person behind Zhang Jiao is richer than the celestial heavens emperor? I don't even know if my father has an innate spiritual treasure in his hands." The woman in white was conversing with little Qing, and the aura of the innate spiritual treasure leaked out. She opened her mouth, but she forgot what to say next. Old Man Mental Demon stood in the crowd and watched the commotion, and he excitedly explained to the people around him, "That is an expert from the future," and he attacked Zhang Liang. "He must be some great god that the path of peace has offended in the future, and he has traveled through time and space to slap their faces." After the heavy aura that seemed to suppress even time and space leaked out, Old Man, mental demon, cried out like a slaughtered duck. His eyes were bloodshot, and for a moment, he wanted to attack immediately, kill Zhang Liang, and snatch the innate spiritual treasure peach. The reason why he did not act was not because Old Man Mental Demon had regained his rationality and self-control, but because he knew that the innate spiritual treasure was most likely lent to Zhang Liang by Zhang Jiao, and killing Zhang Liang would be of no use. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, Zhang Liang had struck out with a 9-section staff, the great Tao of the innate spiritual treasure and the divine ability of the 9 degrees of great Tao combined, instantly shattering the realm created by Fan Wu Jie and sweeping away all the divine abilities and auras left behind by Fan Wu Jie, turning the tables. This innate spiritual treasure was a 9-section staff, and all 9 sections of it were engraved with runes and mystic runes. This 9-section staff was not unfamiliar to many people, for it was the staff of the Path of Peace's cult master, and it was also the tool used by the Path of Peace to preach. The Path of Peace organized its followers in a square, and the leader of the square was the Chu commander, and the master held the 9-section staff as the symbol of the talisman. Volume 42 of the Scripture of Peace said, "To rule the will of the heaven, to harmonize the 9 Qis, and to unite the hearts of the 9 people, thus bringing peace to the great emperor." The so-called 9 people were the gods of formless Qi, whose job was to manage vital Qi. The great god's job was to manage the heavens. The enlightened being's job was to manage the earth. The celestial being's job was to manage the 4 seasons. The Taoist being's job was to manage the 5 elements. The saint being's job was to manage yin and yang. The wise being's job was to manage the books and writings. The commoner's job was to manage the 5 plants and grains. The servant's job was to manage the finances and goods. The 9-section staff was a treasure of divine authority, and in Zhang Jiao's hands, it helped him travel in all directions, and it had also been used in the founding of the Path of Peace, but no one knew that it was an innate spiritual treasure. On the white jade platform, Prince Bo Jun's expression changed. The Path of Peace claimed that the great Tao had 9 degrees, and there were 9 people who governed the world. Those who did one thing each had 9 heads, and 9 by 9 had 81 heads. When used in secret, they formed one big root, and gods were the envoys. The upper 3 by 9 by 27 could save the world. The middle 3 by 9 by 27 could make the true god officials, and the lower 3 by 27 had many Taos. The 9-section staff could summon gods and impeach ghosts, and the holder of the staff could manage the affairs of the 9 people and the 9 Qis, control all things in the world, and save people to achieve the Tao. Everyone had thought that it was just an artifact that symbolized divine authority in the Path of Peace, but now it seemed that it was the incarnation of the great Tao. Such a divine authority artifact must have been made by the ancient celestial emperor who ruled the untainted land, because the celestial court after the ancient gods was established by the Emperor of Heaven. Even Prince Bo Jun didn't know that there was such a divine authority artifact. It must have been transformed by an ancient god, but no one knew which generation of celestial court it belonged to. The Shui Tu king murmured, "The mystic door is indeed rich. Isn't this the 9-section staff transformed by the Middle Emperor when the heavenly King Yuanshi ruled the world? No wonder they wanted to establish the mystic door celestial court. It turns out that when the great heavenly Lord Yuanshi was the ancient God Emperor of Heaven, his former subordinates supported him from behind. Under the heavenly King Yuanshi, there are 10 great emperors: Dong Wang Kung, Dong Hua, Ling Hai, Gong Yuan, Dong Jing, Qing Du, Qing Ling, Zhong Huang, and Jade Emperor. Dong Wang Kung and the 9 primeval emperors. Dong Hua is also the emperor of the celestial court, a subject of the Emperor of Heaven. I wonder if Emperor Dong Hua is involved in this. If Emperor Dong Hua is also involved in this conspiracy, then the heavenly court is really in danger." Yuan Yu's expression was ugly. The heavenly King Yuanshi has transformed into the great heavenly Lord Yuanshi. The great heavenly Lord of the mystic door is not the emperor of heaven of their ancient gods. The three pure ones are one, and the three teachers created the mystic door. How can they allow the ancient gods to use the mystic door to restore the world again? The mystic door is a noble immortal, but a lesser god. Are we going to repeat the battle between the immortals and gods of the mystic door? Yuan Yu thought of the words that Zhao Gongming had revealed. He clenched his fists and murmured, "Jade Emperor." Chapter 1300. The nine-section scepter was raised high, and it had already broken through the illusory world. It came crashing down, and everything returned to chaos. The white jade platform trembled, and Fan Wujie's true bodies in different time and space were destroyed at the same time. His past and future were both locked down by the Khanate's spiritual treasure. With a strike of the scepter, the entire timeline was wiped out, and even the void was turned into chaos. Fan Wujie's remaining true body roared and took out the golden shard. As the past and future were destroyed and the power of time and space rushed towards him, he created a golden bridge that crossed the void. The killing power of the primordial spiritual treasure was far beyond Fan Wujie's expectations. Back then, when Fa Jing held the primordial spiritual treasure, the purple gold alms bowl, it did not seem to be this terrifying. Fan Wujie did not cross the threshold of Dara. If he was like Yuan Yu, who walked through the chaos, or Xue Tu or Wu Sheng, who came from a sect with a long history, he would know why Fa Jing was forced to run away with the purple gold alms bowl. It was because the purple gold alms bowl was Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's spiritual treasure. Even though Fa Jing had the Bodhisattva's decree, he could not use even 1/10,000th of its power. He was not like Zhang Liang, who was instructed by Zhang Jiao to attack with all his strength. The 9 degrees of the Great Tao was also the supreme power of the 9-section staff, which represented the divine authority and order. Therefore, Fan Wujie was forced to use the chaotic treasure, the shard of the UNU Golden Bridge. Fan Wujie stood on the Golden Bridge. His past and future bodies were destroyed by the primordial spiritual treasure, and he could only live in this moment. His current body should have been crushed by the past and future. With the past body destroyed and the future body destroyed, he would naturally die. His future body died, and as time passed, he would die in the next moment. But now, the UNU Golden Bridge crossed the time and space, stopping Fan Wujie in this moment. The past and future tides of time and space, the terrifying attacks that destroyed the true bodies in different time and space, could not touch Fan Wujie, who was standing on the UNU Golden Bridge. He looked at the tides of chaos below the Golden Bridge with lingering fear. The void collapsed, and the Great Tao no longer existed. Under the attack of the primordial spiritual treasure, time and space and grievances were all destroyed. If Fan Wujie fell off the Golden Bridge, he would have to face the impact of his death in different time and space. The white jade platform that carried the primal chaos let out a groan as if it couldn't bear the burden. The blessings of the deities and the restrictions set up by the heavenly court to test the work of the deities were all destroyed. Every single layer of the countless golden barriers was as thick and heavy as an impassable iron wall. Even though the barbarian and dire monster armies had attacked with all their might, and countless Tao Lords were battling on the dais, and countless divine abilities and spells were all blasted against the barriers, they were unable to shake them at all. But now, they were shattered like thin paper. Chaos slammed against the Golden Bridge. Even though the Golden Bridge did not budge, it was still just an illusion. The aura of the Golden Bridge was still stable, but the illusion of the Golden Bridge that Fan Wujie had manifested could not last that long. After all, it was just a fragment of a treasure left behind by a Chaos Fiend god. Below the stage, Yuan Yu glared fiercely at the Xue Tu King and said faintly, "This Yuan Yu Golden Bridge is indeed undefeatable. Even if it's a Khanate numinous treasure, it's still stable even when facing the impact of the 9-section scepter. It's a pity that Fan Brat only has one fragment, and the numinous treasure aura it contains isn't enough. I'm afraid he won't be able to last long. If someone's heavenly demonic blood god blade went up, I'm afraid it would be broken with just one strike from the scepter. The Shwetu king did not argue with him. It was only when he was slashing people that he realized the power of his heavenly, demonic blood god blade. The blood-dissipating saber's sharpness was unparalleled, and its quality was superior. Moreover, it had its own sinister restrictive spell. It was not meant to be used for protection, but for killing. As a divine saber, it was more solid than the golden bridge. Ajadi said proudly, "What 9-section scepter? What purple gold alms bowl? How can they be compared to the Yuan-Tu sword that the demon ancestor carries with him? If my sect's ultimate treasure, the Yuan-Tu sword, was here, I could easily take down Zhang Liang. Even if Zhang Jiao came, he would only be a dead soul under my blade." The Shwetu king and Yuan Yu ignored him. Both of their treasures were the weapons they carried with them, but the treasure that this person took out was the great ancestor of his sect. Don't be fooled by Ajadi's claim that he was invincible with the Yuan-Tu sword, that Zhang Jiao and the innate spiritual treasures were nothing to him, and that Dara would even dare to fight. In reality, he was not wrong. But if Ajadi were to kneel and ask for the Yuan-Tu sword, would this great ancestor make a move for him? The three of them were not worried about Fan Wu Jie, because if it was not for the protection of the Yuan-Tu Golden Bridge, Fan Wu Jie might really be turned into ashes when he was caught off guard by the innate spiritual treasure scepter. But now that Fan Wu Jie had survived the initial danger, even though the Yuan-Tu Golden Bridge was on the verge of collapse, with this buffer, Fan Wu Jie naturally had a way to deal with it. After all, the one holding the innate spiritual treasure was not Zhang Jiao, but Zhang Liang, who was far weaker than Fan Wu Jie. Sure enough, just as the shadow of the Yuan-Tu Golden Bridge became more and more illusory from the impact of the chaos, and at the moment when it was about to shatter, Fan Wu Jie suddenly stepped out of the Golden Bridge. Then, the shadow of the Yuan-Tu Golden Bridge shattered, and a golden fragment was also shattered. Fan Wu Jie fell into the chaos, and the impact of the death of the countless true bodies of time and space came crashing down. Fan Wu Jie was immediately wiped out, and his whole body was wiped out, without a trace of his aura left. Zhang Liang held the scepter with great difficulty, not daring to relax. Of course, it was because Fan Wu Jie's previous actions were too inexplicable, but also because the 9 degrees great Tao mystique and the wishes of the ancestral spirits and ghosts were all sucked dry by the innate spiritual treasure. Now, most of the yellow turban warriors and the ghosts and deities controlled by the 9 degrees great Tao mystique were exhausted. If the scepter struck again, it would probably suck out the source of these ghosts and deities. Even if Zhang Liang was exhausted to the point of vomiting blood, he would only be able to wield the strength of 3 strikes of the 9-section staff. Even if each strike had the power to shake the heavens and the earth, after 3 strikes, Zhang Liang would probably not be able to lift this connate numinous treasure. And his brother, Zhang Jiao, without the 9 degrees great Tao mystique, with his own magical power, he could only strike 5 times. Below the white jade platform, watching Fan Wu Jie fall into the chaos and turn into ashes, the crowd sighed in sympathy. The lady in white turned her head away, unable to look at it, and little Qing's eyes were filled with tears. Old man XMO sighed and said, "What a pity, what a pity! A future strong cultivator, with such a heaven-defying technique, was helpless against the power of this strike." The captain of the Milky Way Navy put down his wine cup and shook his head. "That golden bridge looks familiar. It seems to be the relic of a chaos fiend god." The god with a pair of godly eyes sighed and said, "Even though this future strong cultivator used a fragment of the chaos fiend god's relic and borrowed a shred of Dara's aura to escape this calamity, without the second fragment, it is only a matter of time before he falls." Crown Prince Bo Jun smiled and said, "How can there be no difference? After dodging this strike, he can easily admit defeat. I am not an unreasonable villain who wants to force someone to his death. Would I not allow him to step down from the platform? Even though this person has fallen, everyone has seen his abilities, and he is a good talent. Even if I promote him, what does it matter?" Crown Prince Mu seemed to be a little dumbfounded. He grabbed the corner of his robe nervously, and his face was a little pale. Brother Wu Jie lost. It is not the fault of the battle. How could I know that Zhang Jiao has such a terrifying trump card? But in the primitive universe, there are only a few innate spiritual treasures. This time, we can force out the person behind Zhang Jiao, and it will be a great help to my father. It is still unknown who will win this battle. I just hope that Brother Wu Jie is fine. Amidst the chaos, countless immortal lights suddenly shone brightly, and the energy that was shattered by the innate spiritual treasure, the 9-section staff, turned into a chaotic state. At this time, an embryo emerged from the chaos. It was a strange flesh egg, red like fire, and as soon as it appeared, it swallowed the chaotic energy and expanded rapidly. Then a strange beast with no mouth and no face came out of it. Someone below the platform exclaimed, "Chaos." It was one of the 4 ancient fierce beasts, the Chaos Beast. As soon as it was born, it swallowed the chaotic energy, and its body grew rapidly. Zhang Liang's face turned red, and he couldn't even lift the 9-section staff. He could only watch as the Chaos Beast grew to a height of 1,000,000 zhang. Suddenly, the Chaos Beast flipped over, and Fan Wu Jie came out of it. He was covered in the skin of chaos, and his body shrunk. Yuan Yu smiled and nodded. Reincarnation, grand divine power. Shuetu happily patted Crown Prince Mu's shoulder and said, "I told you that Fan Wu Jie could live another life. Even if his past and future are dead, he can be reborn. Now that he is a chaos beast, he has finally comprehended the principles of reincarnation contained in the 9 questions of the netherworld." Ajadi exclaimed, "Reincarnation is not a forbidden divine power, and it only involves the laws of reincarnation, but there is still the shadow of the 9 questions of the netherworld. If Wu Jie is one step closer to this divine power, he might be able to pry into one of its secrets. I don't know if it's good or bad for him to be involved in the great secret of reincarnation." Yuan Yu sighed, but there was still a lot of trouble under his butt. In the end, Fan Wu Jie wasn't as deeply involved in the great secret of reincarnation as the Dao Lord of Corpse Demon. He didn't have to face a great calamity in the future, but he had to be careful when it came to matters of the netherworld. Fan Wu Jie had used the cycle of reincarnation to avoid the calamities and destructive forces that came from the past and the future. The mighty beings on the White Jade platform were not surprised. Commandant Qin and the true god with his amazing eyesight had long seen this. Although Prince Bo Jun was a little surprised, he knew that Fan Wu Jie could no longer fight on. He was just waiting for Fan Wu Jie to raise his hand and admit defeat. Zhang Liang couldn't raise his 9-section staff a few times and missed the opportunity to kill Fan Wu Jie. So he gave up. He looked at Fan Wu Jie and said in a low voice, "Sir, it looks like this battle is over. In the end, the divine powers of the Tao of Peace are superior. I am ashamed that my cultivation is not good enough, and it is only because of the sect's resources that I am slightly better than you." After saying this, whether it was him, Zhang Jiao, or Bo Jun, they all let out a long sigh in their hearts. Fan Wu Jie lowered his eyes and sighed. The Tao of Peace is indeed extraordinary, as expected of the future. If I had a choice, I would also like to raise my hand and admit defeat. Unfortunately, whether it is me or you, we have no choice. Zhang Liang's expression changed. Prince Bo Jun pressed his hand on the table, and Zhang Jiao snorted. "Reckless," Fan Wu Jie said in a clear voice, "I have a sword, and I invite you to examine it. Under this sword, Reckless is called Absolute Slaughter." His voice seemed to have a magical power, carrying with it the absolute determination of the Tao of Sword. Fan Wu Jie sighed in his heart. In the end, it is an unfair victory. Fan Wu Jie's gaze was focused on the tip of his finger. To everyone else, there was clearly nothing on the tip of his finger, but in the reflection of Fan Wu Jie's eyes, there was a sword that could destroy the sun and the moon, slash apart the universe, unstoppable in the front, unstoppable in the back. It was an extremely sharp and indescribable killing sword. The white sword light that was reflected from his eyes seemed to contain an immeasurable killing intent. shaking one's nascent divinity and piercing through the void. It was dangerous and terrifying, causing everyone around, including the princes, immortal lords, Taoist lords, golden immortals, and even the primordial immortals, to feel their minds go blank. They actually dared not look Fan Wu-jie in the eyes at this moment. Zhang Liang was even more overwhelmed by the killing intent, forgetting everything, even his anger at Fan Wu-jie's reckless provocation just now. It was as if a bucket of ice water had been poured on his head during the hottest days of the year, chilling him to the bone. Slaughtering Sword Qi. None of the Almighties present were ignorant or ill-informed. Old Man Inner Demon was even more horrified. Who brought out our Yuan to Sword Qi? But there were even more people who were trembling. Even those high and mighty figures couldn't help but scream. Some people were so scared that their minds were about to collapse. Zhang Jiao's eyes were wide open, and Crown Prince Bo Jun couldn't help but flip over his table and stand up. Colonel Qin's mouth was agape, and the eyes of that god with superb eyesight even bulged out. Countless immortals and hundreds of millions of cultivators here were trembling to the bone. 4 immortal slaying swords. Demon King Jiao seemed to have a space-time disorder. He looked around and confirmed that he was at the so-called sky-bearing grand meeting in a remote village in the primordial world. He was not in the battlefield of the primordial world after the great Magi-Demon War or some primordial world calamity. However, why did the Khanate numinous treasure and even the immortal vanquishing Sword Qi appear? It had to be said that Shemali and Ajadi's imitation skills were really superb. Other than the people of the demon sect, no one else could recognize the essence of the double-kill sword of Yuan Tu and Avicii under the fairy-slaying Sword Qi. Facing the fairy-slaying Sword Qi, Zhang Liang desperately used the 9 degrees of the Great Tao to squeeze the origin of the ghosts and gods and forcibly raise the 9-sec staff for the second time. But in the face of the 9 tribulation staff that was coming at him once again, Fan Wu-jie merely slashed it with a cold and ruthless killing sword intent. Facing the great way of the Grand Luo of Grand Luo, that soundless killing sword light with restrained killing intent sealed off all the changes of a 9-section staff. At this moment, Fan Wu-jie suddenly sensed a familiar spiritual light. He could not help but unleash the second sword light, according to the mystical principles of the ruins of returning, according to the great Tao of the ruins of returning. Unbeknownst to him, the 2 sword energies had condensed into green lotus flowers. They were fresh and refined, glistening and green, but they were also unusually terrifying. Fan Wu-jie only saw 1 Lianhua fall on the 9-sec staff, and in an instant, the divine order constructed by the 9 degrees of the Great Tao was destroyed. Because all of the ghosts and deities, the yellow-scarfed strongmen, the ancestral spirits, and even the projections of the earthly deities were destroyed by a single sword beam. All of them were killed. The deities who had their projections destroyed and were greatly injured, the true deities who were awe-inspiring and authoritative in the heaven court shut their mouths and pretended not to see anything. That sword light seemed to be the ultimate answer to all the contradictions, causes, problems, and entanglements. It was the answer to all the principles of the world. What divine power, what order, what great Tao, what principle? In front of it, there was only one ultimate solution, and that was to kill. No matter how many spells you have, 10,000 magical powers, I could come and go with only one sword, and I will kill everything. Zhang Liang only saw a sword light coming, and then his vision went black, and he had no more thoughts. Zhang Jiao also watched his brother's head fall to the ground, and the 9-sec staff fall into the dust, and the anger in his heart rose to an unimaginable level. But he stood up and faced that sword light, and his anger was extinguished by the cold, killing intent in the blink of an eye. He could only let out a muffled grunt and sat down again. Seeing Zhang Jiao get angry and then sit down in the blink of an eye, the others felt like laughing, but facing the incomparably fierce sword light on the white jade platform, overflowing with killing intent, they could not laugh. On the white jade platform, all the powerful practitioners, no matter who they were, sat upright and still obediently. They put away their original postures and all of them were like obedient children. Only then did the sword that had locked onto the crowd relax slightly. Then, as Fan Wu Jie put away his sword Qi, it disappeared. Everyone present felt that the sword above their heads had disappeared, and they all heaved a sigh of relief. Half shocked, half glad, they cried out involuntarily, "Why did it have to be like this?" Fan Wu Jie came to his senses and looked at the silence on and off the platform. Even though he had accidentally killed Zhang Liang, no one seemed to be holding him accountable. All the great practitioners were like the most obedient dogs, and even Xue Tu, Wu Sheng, and Yuan Yu, who had always been a little arrogant in the past, were as docile as old dogs without temper. He was a little confused, and his face showed a blank expression. What has happened? Did I go to the wrong timeline? Chapter 1301. Below the stage, someone stole a glance at Fan Wu Jie and whispered, "Senior, what's wrong with these people? That expert from the future killed someone right in front of the Heaven Court's inspector. Why did Sect Master Zhang Jiao of the Road of Peace just watch his brother being beheaded in front of him without making a sound?" Sure. The blood-soaked demon monarch lowered his head like an obedient old dog. He said in a low voice, "Why would Zhang Jiao dare to make a sound? Isn't he afraid that the four swords will kill him as well? Didn't you see that green lotus?" Ajadi was also surprised. Is the imitation of the four immortal execution swords so powerful? Although it has some of the power of the Yuan-Tu sword, the 9-section staff is also an innate spiritual treasure. How could it not protect Zhang Liang? Yuan Yu shook his head and said, "The green lotus formed by the killing sword aura already has a trace of the essence of the immortal execution sword formation. It's not that the power of the immortal slaying sword Qi is beyond your expectations. It's just that the power of the immortal slaying sword formation is more than 1,000 times stronger. Even if the 9-section cane is a primordial spiritual treasure, does it dare to shake the shadow of the immortal slaying sword formation? The sword Aura Lotus reminds me of the time when Sect Master Tong Tian set up the immortal execution sword formation. The four Lianhua fell from the four swords and resisted the power of the four great experts all by himself. We all know where the immortal execution sword formation came from, but how could he set up the immortal execution sword formation with it? Do you dare to say that you don't have any doubts now?" Ajadi sighed. "It's not just doubts, I'm dying of anxiety. A great expert who could use Fan Wu Jie's hand to trigger the shadow of the immortal execution sword formation, or the ancestor of the lifeless cult, who was instructed by the demon ancestor of the River Styx, borrowed the skin of the four immortal execution swords to show the true killing power of the Yuan-Tu sword. The Yuan-Tu sword is an innate spiritual treasure of the great Tao of slaughter, so it's reasonable that it could imitate the essence of the immortal execution sword formation. Either that, or one of the two previous masters of the immortal slaying sword formation is interfering. Demon ancestor of destruction or the Grand Master of heaven? Yuan Yu asked doubtfully. The Xuetu king had already returned to the emerald flying ship. He shook his head and said, "Tong Tian Order Master, or should I say, Ling Bao, Great Heavenly Lord." Ajadi sighed and said, "It's most likely the destroyer demon ancestor. We let Fan Wu Jie go to the end of time to see Ro. As for what happened, we don't know. If the destroyer demon ancestor took this opportunity to set up some hidden tricks on Fan Wu Jie, it wouldn't be strange. He only needed to let Fan Wu Jie see a little bit of the immortal slaying sword formation's charm, and at the crucial moment, he could activate it and create such an effect. It's most likely Ro demon ancestor's backup. After all, Fan Wu Jie has never had anything to do with the GSX sect master." Yuan Yu said slowly, "We know that Fan Wu Jie went to see Ro demon ancestor, but the others don't know. To them, the current Ro demon ancestor is just a person who has just been sealed in the ultimate, a loser in the internal struggle of the demonic Tao. The possibility of him standing behind Fan Wu Jie is very low." "You mean they suspect that Fan Wu Jie has the support of the Grandmaster of Heaven?" The Xuetu king's eyes lit up. "We don't even know the truth, so how would we dare to say anything? Perhaps, behind Fan Wu Jie, the sect master of the Jie sect, is making his move? Yuan Yu said in a deep tone. I can only say that they probably think Tong Tian is one of the three venerables of the mystic door. What does he think about the mystic door interfering in the affairs of the heavenly court? They don't know for sure either. Zhang Jiao sat on the white jade platform with a livid face. His face alternated between green and red, as if he had overturned a paint shop. Prince Bo-jun also sat on the main seat with an ugly expression. Most importantly, it was very difficult to deal with Fan Wu-jie. Old man Mental Demon's face was solemn. He secretly transmitted his voice to Demon King Jiao. I can't do business with you anymore. Demon King Jiao said coldly. Demon Heart, you have already promised us. Are you going to go back on your word? Old man Mental Demon transmitted his voice to Demon King Jiao. That expert came from the future and stopped Zhang Liang and the others from succeeding. Now that Zhang Liang is dead, the path of peace and Celestial Emperor Ziyang's faction have been obstructed. The waters are too deep, especially that green Lianhua. It made me shudder. Can that matter be done at another time? Demon King Jiao thought for a while, then shook his head and said, Prince Mu has been living in seclusion in the celestial heavens. His father, Celestial Emperor Donghua, is deeply trusted by the High Sun family. When the Duke of the East was around, he could already fight against him. Prince Mu is the youngest son of Lord Qing Tong, and Lord Qing Tong calls him Shepherd Boy. It wasn't easy for us to lure him out. I have to say that Emperor Zhuanqu's methods are superb. Ever since the celestial heavens pardoned the original sin of the demon race, many of the demon race were bewitched by him. They wholeheartedly threw themselves into the arms of the celestial heavens and followed the merit laws. There were even many who were glorified as gods. Zhuanqu tried in vain to dilute the difference between humans and demons, reversing the tradition of suppressing the demon race during the Celestial Emperor's era. He kept saying that the Celestial Emperor treated the demon race poorly and treated the human race poorly, and that he only loved them. He is very bewitching. If this continues, the recognition that the demon race has gathered since the Tai Divine Emperor will be dissolved by him. But the difference between humans and demons is greater than the sky and deeper than the sea. How can we let him have his way? That Bai Sujin is a demon that I carefully selected who admires the celestial heavens. Her merit has already reached the critical point of transcending and becoming a god. You, old man mental demon, are famous. You used the Tao of mental demons to confuse Prince Mu's mind and make him forcibly take Bai Sujin. You made him, the son of Celestial Emperor Donghua, destroy the heavenly law that separates heaven and man. This is the first reason. The second reason is that I will secretly help the two little demons and make them kill Prince Mu while resisting. Celestial Emperor Ziyang in the celestial heavens has a tacit understanding with us. After Prince Mu dies, Prince Bo-jun will slaughter the demon tribes that dare to submit to the celestial heavens in the name of finding the murderer of Prince Mu. We, the demon gods who cultivate merit laws in the celestial heavens, will also cause trouble and incite the emotions of the demons who cultivate merit laws in the celestial heavens. After that, it will be the matter of us, the seven sages. This plan is the key to us, the seven sages, setting off the next upsurge of the demon race's rebellion. Firstly, it is to attack the reputation of Emperor Zhuanqu's right-hand man, Celestial Emperor Donghua, and attack the trend of humans and demons merging, causing the demon race to split again. Secondly, it is to attack the merit laws of the celestial heavens. The Emperor of Heaven established merit, and not his heart. It was not easy for Celestial Emperor Ziyang to find a way to promote immortals and gods without going through merit laws. This time, many powerful figures of the demon race pretended to cultivate merit and sneaked into the celestial heavens. We must ruin the merit laws. So, the drama of Bai Sujin assassinating the prince and being pursued by the celestial heavens will be played by us and Celestial Emperor Ziyang. When Emperor Zhuanqu suppresses the demon race, Celestial Emperor Ziyang massacred the innocent. When Emperor Zhuanqu pacifies the situation, Celestial Emperor Ziyang completely surrenders and worships the demon race, provoking the anger of a human race. With us working together, Zhuanshu will not be able to bridge the rift between humans and demons. The rift will only get bigger and bigger. Bai Sujin cultivates under the goddess of Mount Li and has countless friends. Most of them are demon immortals who have accumulated merit. The celestial heavens will pursue her accomplices and magnify the case. They will definitely be able to frame many of them. At that time, it will definitely arouse the anger of the peace faction of the demon race. We will raise our arms again. Previously, we did not do anything because we wanted to wait for the power of the demon race to recover from the weakening caused by the Emperor of Heaven's long period of attacks. Now that the foundation of the demon race is strong, we must make the policy of broadening the demon race a bleeding wound in the celestial heavens. Emperor Zhuanshu wants to use us, and so does Celestial Emperor Ziyang. The discrimination against the demon race in the celestial heavens is deep-rooted. The differences between demon gods and human gods, demon immortals and human immortals, are also becoming more and more obvious. The conflict between the races will never disappear. Old man mental demon, you are already too deeply involved. Don't you think it's a little too late to withdraw now? Demon King Jiao said coldly. Old man mental demon chuckled and said, "What am I afraid of? We fiends have always been the ones who are the most capable of courting death. We never mind causing trouble. Since you have such ambitions, we fiends will naturally do our best to help you. In any case, we have never done anything good. Do you think I am afraid of being too deeply involved? He, the person who caused the vortex, is the safest in the center of the vortex. However, that expert from the future has already disrupted the situation. Furthermore, he came from Di Zimu's side. If you say that those experts who are suspected to have come from the future met Di Zimu by accident, do you believe that yourself?" Old man, mental demon said. Demon King Jiao pondered for a long time and said, "You are saying that they came from the future to stop this matter? No matter how meticulous the plot is, there will always be traces left behind after the matter. Furthermore, the demon race's plot is not tight. It is also possible for someone to discover something from the lower reaches of the timeline. Also, that green lotus," Old man mental demon said anxiously, "don't you feel uneasy?" Demon King Jiao's expression did not change. The old master of Jie School will not interfere in the battle between humans and demons. The number of demons under him is far greater than the other two old masters. It is clear that he does not discriminate against us demons. But if you say that he favors you demons more," Old man mental demon sneered and said, "Can you say that? Between the human race and the demon race, who does the three pure ones favor? There is no need to ask. The arrow is already knocked on the bowstring. It has to be released." Demon King Jiao said lightly, "How can we care about so many schemes now? Those who call themselves ancestors all have skin to hide. Now is not the time for the Tai Divine Court and the Heavenly Court to fight for the heavenly mandate. Although our plot is a matter of life and death in our eyes, to them, it is just a trivial matter. Even if we obstruct the Tao of a great ancestor and get erased, we will accept our fate. Demon King Jiao, attack as usual. I will create an opportunity for you." Demon King Jiao looked at Fan Wu Jie on the stage with his hands behind his back and transmitted his voice. On the white jade stage, Crown Prince Bo Jun's expression was ugly, but now was not the time to care about such things. He was prepared to grit his teeth and bear with the matter regarding Zhang Liang. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Zhang Jiao stand up from the corner of his eye and swallowed the words back into his stomach. /book_15466/L. Chapter 1302. Zhang Jiao turned his head to face Fan Wu Jie. His face was as calm as a deep lake, without a single ripple. Previously, when he saw the sword Qi Lotus, he had already concealed his shocked expression. Now, even if it was Yuan Yu or Shui Tu, these old foxes, they would not be able to guess anything from his face. Zhang Jiao cupped his fists at Prince Bo Jun and said, "Since it was a fair duel between two families my brother was killed because he was not as strong as the other, and he was too arrogant. His death was not to be regretted. Even if he was killed in a fair duel, the path of peace is not going to pursue the matter. Since this young master can defeat my brother, there should be a place in front of the white jade platform. Although my brother was defeated, the path of peace is not without people. Young master, please allow Zhang Jiao to take the rest of the duel in place of my dead brother, to prove the great art of the path of peace. Before Fan Wu Jie could say anything, Prince Bo Jun stepped forward and stopped him. Cult Master Zhang, you are too serious. Previously, I only wanted the young talents of the two families to learn from each other and verify the great Tao. There is no intention to fight to the death. It is a pity that the two of you have ended up like this. Since the misfortune has already happened, how can we let the two families fight again? This is a fight between two young talents. How is it related to the reputation of the path of peace? Prince Bo Jun's gaze fell on Fan Wu Jie again, and he shook his head with a pained expression. Little brother, why did you kill him? This white jade platform is not a place to fight to the death. It is a place for the heaven to select the young talents of the world to compete and compete. Now that it has become a matter of life and death, isn't it going against the original intention of the heaven to select talents? How can the heaven use you with such a vicious attack? The heaven has always chosen talents with both virtue and talent. If we take you today, won't the white jade platform be littered with corpses in the future? There will never be a day of peace again, will there? Fan Wu Jie sighed and said, Your Highness is right. Brother Zhang Liang and I felt like old friends when we first met, and we appreciated each other. Because in a moment of anger, I could not hold back and accidentally killed Brother Zhang Liang. I deeply regret it. I can only sigh that Brother Zhang Liang fought with an innate spirit treasure, so I had to use a divine ability that I could not control. That sword will of mine is filled with killing intent. When the sword is drawn, it will definitely be stained with blood. I'm not afraid of everyone laughing at me. My temperament isn't strong enough to control this sword. Right now, there's a faint killing intent in my heart. I'm afraid I'll lose control if I'm provoked. I can't control myself. The leftover sword energy in Fan Wu Jie's hand flashed across, startling all the almighty beings sitting in front of the white jade tower. Many of them were forced back instinctively by the sword energy, while some of them were even pushed away by it, flipping over the table with one hand and hiding behind it. Cups and plates fell to the ground, startling all the immortals under the white jade tower, and they craned their necks to have a look. Seeing that many people were staring at him, the rogue cultivator with a trace of the immemorial Golden Crow bloodline, Master Crow, blushed and repeatedly apologized before quietly slipping down from the white jade platform. Zhang Jiao waved his hand and took back the 9-section staff. Although your highness is advising with kind words, there are people who do not appreciate it. Since you can't suppress your killing intent, then let me kill your killing intent. Zhang Jiao's eyes widened, and he raised the 9-section staff angrily. Fan Wu Jie was shouting madly in his heart. Shuetu, Wu Sheng, I've done as you said. They've taken the bait. Bring Prince Mu up quickly. This plan is called building a ladder to heaven. Before Fan Wu Jie went up, Yuan Yu had secretly instructed him. Now that we want to sneak into the heaven, we have to use young Master Mu, who delivered himself to our door as a raft. After you go up, you must make Prince Bo Jun and Zhang Jiao fall out with you. If Zhang Jiao attacks you, we'll take it, then immediately bring Prince Mu out and use him to slap Prince Bo Jun in the face. We don't have a status to fight Prince Bo Jun. In front of the heaven, we're nothing. Do you see the Milky Way Navy? The captain in the lead was even scarier than Zhang Jiao. There were several people at their level in the Milky Way Navy's patrol fleet. That's why we have to use Prince Mu to fight. Only then can we turn this into an internal power struggle in the heaven. That's why the Milky Way Navy will turn a blind eye. First, we want Imperial Prince Mu to step on Imperial Prince Bo Jun to ascend the throne. We'll help him build up his power and support him, allowing him to contend against Imperial Prince Bo Jun without being at a disadvantage. This is called building a ladder to heaven, lifting someone up. Then, We'll remove the ladder to heaven so that he can't get down and can only fight Prince Bo-jun to the end. That way, he'll have to rely on us to help him build up his power. So, the first step is to send Prince Bo-jun up the ladder to heaven. We'll make use of your matter to let Prince Mu stand up for you and take on this matter, so that Prince Bo-jun will board our pirate ship. The second step is to remove the ladder to heaven. We'll send Prince Mu to slap Prince Bo-jun's face so that both of them won't be able to back down. The power of a 9-section staff in Zhang Jiao's hands was completely different from when it was in Zhang Liang's hands. Zhang Jiao's expression was calm, and his mind was as firm as steel. Even though it might have been Tongtian's sect leader's move, after a short moment of shock, his mind didn't waver. He made a move to test it out. He wanted to face the immortal slaying sword Qi in Fan Wu Jie's hands and see what it was like. The road of peace and Zhang Jiao had no way out. Boundless visions rose from the 9-segmented staff, and countless ghosts and deities materialized from the void. Fan Wu Jie had not only killed Zhang Liang with a single sword, but he had also destroyed the divine authority of the Tao of Peace. But Zhang Jiao had manifested countless ghosts and deities with his own cultivation base. The impurities in his body had turned into ghosts, and the qi of heaven and earth that he had influenced had turned into ocean gods. The heaven and earth that he was in had absorbed the spirits of the deities, and it was the great supernatural power of the unity of heaven and man, and the ghosts and deities had accompanied him. In his 5 viscera, there was the 5 elements godly wheel. In each of his acupoints, there was a god guarding them. His brain and spirit turned into a jade emperor, and his breath turned into 4 kinds of qi. It was like the beginning of chaos, and clear and turbid were separated. The turbid and yellow ones sank, and the pure and dark ones rose. Under the clear qi, his breath turned into wind and rain, and countless stars appeared. His 2 eyeballs turned into the sun and moon, and his dantian turned into a deep and unfathomable whirlpool. His spirits were reincarnated in it. Even the bottom of the valley turned into a huge abyss that swallowed everything. This was the true 9 degrees of the Great Way. Zhang Jiao couldn't prove the 9 degrees of the Great Way externally, and he couldn't build the heaven court and rule over the chaos. Therefore, he saw himself as Pangu, and used the human race to imitate the Pangu real body in his body to open up a world. He condensed the gods in his organs, and used the functions of his organs to condense the gods and imitate the 9 degrees of the Great Way to run the heaven and earth. He cultivated gods and devils, and used the 9 degrees of the Great Way to run the small heaven and earth in his body, and used his small heaven and earth to affect the big heaven and earth in the outside world. The endless divine light and the countless gods and devils were like illusions, flashing and disappearing. But Zhang Jiao's inner world, all the power in his body, and all the qi of vitality in the outside world were all added to the 9-section staff. This caused the 9-section staff to fall straight down. It looked ordinary, and it didn't have any magic like Zhang Liang's hand. But the more ordinary it was, the more Fan Wu Jie didn't dare to underestimate it. He was terrified. The 2 sword energies that Ajati gave him were mostly used up, and what was left were only some residual light shadows. They could be used to scare people, but to make him face Zhang Jiao's real attack. Fan Wu Jie wasn't that reckless. He took a step back, and Yuan Yu, who was under the white jade platform, took a step forward. He stepped on a golden bridge, crossed countless obstacles, and came between Fan Wu Jie and Zhang Jiao. He borrowed the wisp of qi that Ajati had summoned and manifested a sword shadow. The shadow of Yuantu's sword flashed in the void and slashed at the 9-section staff. In an instant, the countless ghosts and gods, the shadow of the huge world that was the convergence of countless god kingdoms, were all destroyed, and there was not the slightest strange phenomenon. Yuan Yu took on Zhang Jiao's attack with ease. Why does fellow Taoist Zhang Jiao have to bully a child? Why don't I spar with you? Yuan Yu said with a smile. Zhang Jiao withdrew the 9-section staff, his expression solemn Below the platform, Shuetu tugged on the sleeve of young Master Mu, who was watching in shock, reminding him that it was time to make an appearance. Only then did young Master Mu come back to his senses. He tidied up his appearance and assumed the posture of father in his memories. He slowly used the golden bridge that Yuan Yu had erected to ascend the platform. Before he even appeared, his laughter rang out first. Ha ha ha! Brother Bo Jun, what you said earlier was wrong. Chapter 1303. Who are you? An old man beside Prince Bo Jun suddenly jumped out, pointed at Prince Mu's nose, and said, "Who are you to speak in front of the prince?" As soon as he jumped out, he felt that something was wrong. Wait, isn't that Prince Mu? Why did I come out? Why am I so aggressive? Pointing at Prince Mu's nose. Do you really think that Emperor Dong Hua can't kill me? As soon as this thought came to his mind, it was twisted by an invisible demonic thought. Who is Emperor Dong Hua? I'm relying on Imperial Monarch Ziyang, and I have the support of Prince Bo Jun. Now that Prince Mu is coming at me with such ferocious momentum, if I don't fight for Prince Bo Jun, how will I still have any status in front of the prince in the future? Behind him, Prince Bo Jun looked at him with approval, which made him even more excited. Among the crowd, old man X and Mo quietly hid. Prince Z Mu's temperament was excellent. Not only did Fan Wu Jie's provocation not infuriate him, it actually calmed him down. Just as he was about to explain why he stood out and help Fan Wu Jie, he saw the blood-soaked demon lord suddenly step forward like a lackey. His eyes were cold as he said, "Presumptuous! My young master is of such a high status. How dare an old servant offend him? Kneel before the prince." The master of the lifeless sect reached out a huge hand that was glowing with black light. It passed through the white jade pavilion and pressed down on the old man who had just spoken. A trace of anger flashed across Imperial Prince Bo Jun's face. However, he was extremely shrewd and wanted Imperial Prince Mu to display his infamy in front of all the people of the bright rugged region. Thus, he signaled his subordinates not to interfere. When Imperial Prince Mu appeared, Commandant Sheen of the Milky Way Navy stroked his long beard with a calm expression. However, seeing the arrogant tone of the lifeless cult master and the blood-soaked demon monarch, he forcefully pulled off a strand of his beard. He stared dumbfoundedly at Prince Mu, who had his head lowered and had a bashful look on his face. He was inexplicably shocked. Was this the same shy and introverted Prince Mu that he knew? Emperor Dong Hua's family was extremely strict and had always attached great importance to his reputation in the eyes of the general public in the untainted land. He did not allow his son to make friends with bandits and bully others with his identity as a prince. Therefore, Imperial Prince Mu had never had a group of lackeys supporting him to act like a tyrant. On the contrary, his father's subordinates always asked him to uphold the reputation of Dong Hua, Imperial Emperor. The few times he went out with the identity of a prince, he was always low-key and polite. Why had he ever been so arrogant and domineering? Now, the Shuetu king was acting so arrogantly, and Ajadi was acting so domineeringly, not even giving face to Crown Prince Bo Jun. In front of countless immortal cultivators, he was acting so arrogant and domineering. Imperial Prince Mu also felt that it was inappropriate. He thought, although Brother Butcher and Brother Shansheng have good intentions, it is still hard to avoid the simple and crude style of itinerant cultivators. It is too crude and rude. I still need to be enlightened by the heaven. While I go back, I will definitely have a good talk with them, telling them to treat others peacefully. How can they be so arrogant and overbearing? However, there was an inexplicable excitement in his heart, a feeling that he was ready to make a move. Now, in front of Crown Prince Bo Jun, I can't let these two brothers lose face. I will save this for later. For now, I have to think about the bigger picture. Crown Prince Bo Jun is ambitious, and he actually wants to collude with the Mystic Door. This cannot be allowed to continue. To make him realize his mistake, it is inevitable that it will be a little more intense. I believe Father will understand me. The old man was already panicking, and he was ready to bow his head and admit defeat. However, the strange demonic thoughts moved again, and his heart suddenly burned with passion. He knelt down involuntarily, bearing the powerful pressure exerted by the dark hand. The great humiliation made him instantly furious, and he attacked recklessly. Old Man Ximo secretly activated his demonic thoughts, making the old man want to kill. Demon King Jiao said coldly, "Yes, if we let Crown Prince Bo Jun's subordinates kill Crown Prince Mu, the effect might be better. This way, the two forces of the heaven will definitely fall out with each other." Originally, there was no such plan because Crown Prince Bo Jun has always been cautious and will not easily clash with Crown Prince Mu. Crown Prince Mu has always been low-key, so it is difficult to create conflict. But I don't know what went wrong, but these two actually fought each other. How can we let go of this opportunity? The old man's white hair fluttered in the wind, and he said angrily, "Who do you think you are? I don't care who you are. You are just a servant, and you dare to attack me. And you want me to kneel? You are courting death." He clenched his hands, and two streams of air, one black and one white, came out of his nostrils. The black stream of air turned into a murderous aura, exuding an aura of death. The black mist turned into a divine spear in his hand, and he pointed it at Crown Prince Mu's chest. The black mist was extremely vicious, and the spirit fruits and flowers on the tables around the old man melted into pus as soon as they came into contact with it. One had to know that even with the wealth of the primordial era, the divine wood used to make the banquet tables in the heaven court was the essence of the heart of the divine wood, which was billions of years old and had obtained the essence of the second and first wood of the east. Not to mention the baleful aura. Even the filthy blood water that Fan Wu Jie and the others encountered earlier was nothing more than dirty water used to wipe the tables. However, when it came into contact with the murderous aura that came out of the old man's nostrils, it melted instantly. Fan Wu Jie had a whole new level of respect for him. Although he was just a bootlicker in front of Crown Prince Bo Jun, an expert was still an expert, and he wouldn't lose his power just because he lowered himself to bootlick. The white stream of air contained the Western Golden Gung energy and was extremely sharp. The slightest contact with it was like countless divine blades cutting through bones. The black and white stream of air split into two, and the white stream of air turned into countless golden gung flying daggers that slashed toward Xuetu and Wu Sheng, while the black stream of air turned into a long spear that stabbed toward Crown Prince Mu's chest. Fan Wu Jie's heart raced, and he quickly deployed a universal barrier in front of Crown Prince Mu. However, the universal barrier, which had always been successful, was like a thin piece of paper in front of the black mist. It was broken inch by inch, and each inch took nearly 100 years. It could even taint the universal true water. Fan Wu Jie's heart tightened, and he pushed the universal escape art to the extreme, rushing over to block the attack for Crown Prince Mu. Crown Prince Mu didn't panic, but when he saw Fan Wu Jie rushing over to him, he still felt a warmth in his heart, and the doubt that had just risen in his heart vanished. He thought to himself, Brother Wu Jie and the other few brothers are, after all, itinerant cultivators, and I know how it is like among itinerant cultivators. They haven't been educated by the heavens' etiquette, and they are very arrogant and overbearing. Perhaps they think that they're doing this for my own good. Great Magus murderous aura, Xuetu said slowly. This is the ferocious murderous aura refined by the primordial Magus Tao, and it is specially used to break the protective divine flames of fire elemental divine beasts like Bai Fong and Vermilion Bird. Ajadi finally put on a serious expression. He sneered and said, Crown Prince Bo Jun, you sure are impressive. Our Crown Prince is on the same level as you, and yet your old servant is so insensible. I told you to kneel, and you still dare to fight back. Ajadi slashed out with his sword, and with a slight tremor, the black and white energies, the countless flying daggers, and the divine spear were all shattered, and even the Western Gold Essence Chi and the great Magus murderous aura were swept away. Fan Wu Jie's body shook again and again. Ajadi was going all out, and it was only now that he realized how much weaker he was compared to these veteran Dao monarchs. Before this, Fan Wu Jie thought that Yuan Yu Shui and Wu Shang should be at the primordial Xian level like him, and that Zhang Jiao should be at the primordial Xian level. But now, it seemed that he was the only one who was right. The three of them were not weaker than Zhang Jiao, and might even be stronger. But even so, Fan Wu Jie still thought that they were no match for Zhang Jiao, because the pressure of an innate spirit treasure was too great, so great that it could easily overcome the difference in power between them. The difference in power between those below the level of Dara was meaningless to an innate spirit treasure. Shui King attacked again. This time, his body flashed, and in a flash of red light, he arrived in front of the old man. He reached out and grabbed the back of the old man's head, pressing the old man's head against the table. He extended his leg and gave a heavy kick to the old man's knee, forcing him to kneel on the ground. Tears of humiliation flowed out of the old man's eyes, and Prince Bo Jun's face turned ugly. All the immortals of the Skybearer Assembly felt their hearts tremble when they saw this scene. That old man was a veteran Dao Lord, and his divine powers were astonishing. Few people present could say that they could easily withstand his attacks. He was a sect leader of a region in the Bright Blaze realm, but such a person could only be a dog in the heavenly court, and was wantonly bullied by the important figures of the heavenly court. He had merely offended that mysterious imperial prince, yet he was forced to kneel on the ground. Just how domineering was that? Prince Mu, who was on the stage, felt guilty. He whispered to the people around him, "Isn't this too much? Why don't we let him get up, and I'll apologize to him and let this misunderstanding go." Yuan Yu said in a low voice, "Prince, you mustn't do this. Who do you think you are? How can you make a mistake? Prince, you won't make a mistake. It's the others who are at fault. It's all our subordinates and those ignorant people who don't know what's good for them. That person is just a dog of Prince Bo Jun. Didn't you see that even Prince Bo Jun didn't stand up for him? You and Prince Bo Jun are on the same level. So how can you apologize to his dog?" But, Father said, Prince Mu's rebuttal was very weak. Shui King said in a low, muffled voice, "Prince, think about it. Even if you were a little arrogant and domineering, making the common people unhappy, is that important to the Heaven Court? Is it important to the common people's opinion of you? As long as you don't lose your merit, being a little overbearing will prevent those ignorant people from making bigger mistakes. If you indulge them too much, they won't know what's good for them and make bigger mistakes. Your Highness, didn't that person want to kill you just now? If you don't teach him a lesson, the common people will think that the prince's prestige can be easily offended, and the Heaven Court will lose its dignity as a ruler. The Heaven Court rules the world with prestige and virtue. Virtue means that the Heaven Court will bless the world, and virtue means that the Heaven Court will slaughter the demon race and punish the disobedient subjects. Your Highness, that's what you should do." Prince Mu looked at the respectful gazes of the crowd. In their eyes, he seemed to have reached the same status as Prince Bo Jun. In the past, he had always been ignored. And when did he have such a sense of existence? Previously, when he went out to work, people would look at him like he was a noble young master with a golden signboard. There was envy, jealousy, and flattery, but no dignity or power. But now, no one dared to disregard his opinion, and no one dared to ignore him. All of a sudden, he stood at a new height. Imperial Prince Mu said nervously and excitedly, "Brothers, please keep a low profile. Don't make it seem like I'm too arrogant. If my father hears about this, he'll definitely scold me. Of course, I have to maintain my dignity. I finally have a bit of my father's elegance." Yuan Yu encouraged, "That's right, Your Highness. Don't lose your dignity." Prince Mu wanted to say something else, but Shui and Wu Sheng stood on his left and right. Yuan Yu created a golden bridge that was 100 times more majestic than Prince Bo Jun's golden rainbow. The golden bridge floated above the wind, earth, water, and fire, the white jade pavilion, and was above everything. All matter and energy flowed under the bridge, and all changes in matter and time were under the bridge. Even though Yuan Yu's golden bridge only had 1/10,000th of its power, that wisp of chaotic aura was enough to intimidate everyone. As Prince Mu walked on the bridge, he immediately became the center of attention, and his dignity and extravagance were unparalleled. Back when Xiaohe built the palace, even Liu Bang thought it was too extravagant. Xiaohe advised, "The Son of Heaven has the four seas as his home, and if it isn't majestic, it can't be majestic." Majesty and extravagance were not completely extravagant and useless. Instead, they were the stupidity of all living beings, and if it wasn't majestic, it couldn't be majestic. The heaven ruled over all living beings, and the Emperor of Heaven was selfless and selfless, and all living beings were united. What Yuan Yu and Shui Tu had brought out was also the natural order of the era. Prince Mu, who had been neglected and educated for a long time, immediately felt it when he experienced the wonders of being domineering. For someone like him, who had been neglected for a long time, it was easier for him to feel the changes in the way others looked at him. What surprised Prince Mu was that his arrogant and domineering actions didn't arouse the disgust of the immortals below the platform. Instead, they looked at him with even more respect and reverence. With every move he made, he felt like he held great power and the majesty of a god ruling over the world. At this moment, Prince Mu finally understood that his polite concession didn't seem magnanimous and kingly when compared to Prince Bo-jun. Instead, it made the immortal officials of the heaven look down on him. Although their attitudes towards Prince Bo-jun were different, with some being close to him and some being dissatisfied with him, they were all looking at him like he was a noble of the same status. Although most of them looked at him cordially, they were still looking at him like he was a junior with a lower status than them. Now that he was majestic and domineering, they finally looked at him seriously. Prince Mu immediately shut his mouth, which was about to persuade Yuan Yu and the others, and immersed himself in the role that Yuan Yu and the others had set for him. Prince Bo-jun finally paid attention to this Prince Mu who had appeared out of nowhere. He brought his subordinates to the opposite side of the Golden Bridge and said, "So it's Prince Mu. I'm currently inspecting this young talent of the Bright Side region to carry out his duty of inspection. I wonder why Prince Mu has come to the Bright Side region for sightseeing despite having no authority. It's my fault for not being a good host." Prince Mu didn't need Yuan Yu and the others' guidance. He said without a teacher, "Prince Bo-jun must be joking. Although I don't care about worldly affairs, my father, Emperor Zhuanshu, is in charge of yin and yang. I have to share my father's burdens, so it's natural for me to occasionally observe the affairs of the people. Occasionally, there are local tyrants who violate the law and ignore the laws of heaven. I can also punish them. There are also demons, barbarians, devils, remnants of the ancient gods, as well as evil gods and ferocious beasts. I have the responsibility to punish them as well." Prince Mu said indifferently, "I'm out of practice. I just want to know how to hunt demons, barbarians, and slaughter evil. Although I don't have an official position, it's as if I do. This is the original intention of Emperor of Heaven's laws of merit. Following the heavens is merit, and following the Tao is virtue. I'm following the merit and becoming a pillar of the heaven." Prince Bo-jun took a step forward and said solemnly, "Prince Mu, you must be joking. Who calls themselves a pillar of the heaven?" Prince Mu said indifferently, "Oh, didn't Prince Bo-jun call me shepherd boy in the past? Do you know your limits now? Doesn't this mean that I'm becoming a pillar of the heaven?" Upon hearing the words shepherd boy, Bai Sujin, who was on the white jade platform, raised her head in shock and looked at Prince Mu. Little Qing said in surprise, "Shepherd boy, sister, isn't that what the Holy Mother said?" Little Qing, don't speak. The Holy Mother said it vaguely. It might not be that person. Little Qing said excitedly. Although this person is a little arrogant and domineering, he has a heroic air. Furthermore, his identity is extraordinary, and he is related to the heavens' Empyrean Lord. Prince Bo-jun also thinks highly of him. I'm afraid that his identity is complicated, Little Bai said solemnly. We sisters are not the kind of female demons who do not know what's good for themselves by trying to curry favor with the nobles of the heaven. I'm focused on cultivating to attain enlightenment, and my greatest dream is to be a free and unfettered, demonic, immortal god. Now that my fated person's identity is so complicated, If I were to be embroiled in it, I'm afraid I'll be doomed eternally. Little Ching, I'm feeling uneasy. It's like there are signs of an impending tribulation. Although this person has the word Mu in his name, he might not be the fated person. He might even be the evil star that I have to face the tribulation. This tribulation is unfathomable. Little Ching, quickly turn back and seek the protection of the Holy Mother. Don't accompany me in facing the tribulation. Little Ching was obviously unwilling to comply. She shook her head and said, Sister, our fates are linked. If you're to face the tribulation, how can I escape? Ignoring the fact that I'm unwilling. Even if I were to escape, my outcome would probably be even worse. Now, we sisters need to work together. If we face the tribulation, we might have a chance of survival. Yuan Yu set up the golden bridge, while Shui Tu visualized the countless red lotuses of fire blooming in the sea of blood on the white jade platform. In an instant, the red lotuses on the white jade platform suddenly bloomed. There were millions of them stacked on top of each other, forming a lotus sea. They bloomed in front of the white jade platform, forming 2 rows of seats. Prince Mu did not stand on ceremony and sat at the head of one of the rows, followed by Yuan Yu and company. Crown Prince Bo Jun sat on the seat of honor opposite Crown Prince Mu. His subordinates also sat down one after another, sitting down a row. Compared to the 3 to 5 people opposite them, their presence was much greater. As for Colonel Qin and Heavenly I Divine Man, they were already in a difficult position. According to the etiquette of attending a banquet, it was not allowed to have a large group of people on one side and only a few people on the other side. However, these seats were clearly meant for standing. Who would dare to sit down so easily? Only the few experts from the Milky Way Navy hesitated for a moment before starting to sit on Prince Mu's side. Yuan Yu's heart immediately calmed down. The Milky Way Navy is on Emperor Zhuanqu's side. That's right. If Emperor Zhuanque lost his military power, how could he defeat Tung Wang Kung? Looks like the military power is still in the hands of Emperor Zhuanqu's side. No wonder Emperor Ziyang wanted to obtain the support of the local tyrants. Chapter 1304. Sure enough, the people on and off the white jade platform, upon seeing the Milky Way Navy's vague declaration, all felt a chill in their hearts. They no longer dared to underestimate the mysterious Imperial Prince Mu. On the white jade platform, although Imperial Prince Mu's side's momentum was slightly weaker, they could still faintly contend with Imperial Prince Bo Jun. In terms of momentum, they were not at a disadvantage. Demon King Jiao frowned and thought, strange? It is said that Imperial Prince Mu keeps a low profile. Although he is favored by Imperial Emperor Donghua, he does not have any power. Among the princes of the heavenly court, he is very low-key. That is why we chose to start with him. But the situation now is a little strange. Could it be that Emperor Donghua is finally ready to let Prince Mu establish his influence in the heavenly court? The few people next to him have extraordinary cultivation. Could it be that they are also masters sent by Imperial Lord Donghua to assist his son? Demon Heart Old Man secretly transmitted his voice, Demon King Jiao. When I secretly triggered the demonic thoughts to control Prince Mu's inner demon, I was inexplicably infected and stopped. I am afraid the plan has changed. That's impossible. Only the 7 great sages know about this plan. It's impossible for it to be leaked. Even you only just found out about it. Old Man Inner Demon, if there's a problem, it's most likely on your side. Demon Heart Old Man sneered. I'm a man of my word. I will not go back on my word. But he also had some doubts. Why did the method that stopped my inner demon power seem to be the work of a master from the demon clan? Does the old ancestor have another plan? However, Old Man Inner Demon did not voice his guess. He said in a low voice, there are many ways to subdue inner demons, but be it the meditation techniques of Buddhism, the meritorious arts of the heavenly court, or the demon-subduing arts of the Taoist sects, it is not easy to do so silently and colorlessly. If it is not a mighty figure of a higher level, they would not be able to make me return without making a sound. They would have to do it from the 2 great realms of illusion. The land of dreams and the great illusionary land? Demon King Jiao frowned. perfected Nanhua, and 8 visions Tao Lord have always been free and unfettered. They do not get involved in the affairs of the untainted land. Why would they help Prince Mu? As for those who knew the inside story, they weren't surprised by Prince Mu's background. Ever since the Emperor of Heaven, the inside story of the heavenly court became more and more cloudy to the people who were governed. Although the people did not know nothing about the heavenly court, they knew very little about it. To the immortals who had been conferred the title of the heavenly court, the rules of the heavenly court were naturally like golden books and jade books. But to the people, the rules of the heavenly court were a kind of unspeakable taboo that was difficult to understand. Countless demons had died under the wrath of the heavenly court without knowing it. Although the Emperor of Heaven was harsh to the demon race, he had a saying, "Demons cannot be punished if they do not accept teachings." The Emperor of Heaven had once engraved the law of heaven into the great Tao. Demon spirits that had awakened their spiritual intelligence would naturally know the laws of the law of heaven. Therefore, although there were many tribulations for demons, they would only be restricted by the law of heaven after awakening their spiritual intelligence. Only then would there be heavenly thunder, heavenly fire, and inner demonine wind. And the law of merit was established by the Emperor of Heaven as the foundation of the great Tao of heaven and earth. The 5 elements, 5 virtues, 5 tribulations, and 5 fortunes rotated. Every cultivator in the world knew how to cultivate merit, to follow the will of heaven, and not suffer from tribulations. As the saying went, the merit was mysterious, the virtue was yellow, the moral was clear, the holy virtue was white, and the Yin virtue was red. The 5 virtues rotated and enlightened all living beings. Ever since the Emperor of Heaven fused with the Tao and the heavenly court's reform, the laws of the law of merit became more and more secretive. Even now, very few people knew about it. This was also a major move of the Tung Wang Kung's reform to weaken the foundation of the law of merit. The Tung Wang Kung believed that all living beings could be made aware of it, but not. Once the law of heaven was clear, all living beings would lose their reverence for the law. They would think of ways to exploit the loopholes in the law of heaven. Therefore, the law of heaven should be made to be like lightning, hanging high above all living beings with unfathomable divine power. Only then would all living beings revere the law of heaven as they worshipped lightning. How could the will of heaven be known? A will of heaven that was known not only could not deter evil, but also could not make all living beings revere it. Some people objected with the previous law of the Emperor of Heaven, thinking that killing without teaching would cause all living beings to question the fairness of the law of heaven. However, the Tung Wang Kung did not get angry. Instead, he laughed and tried it out. In the end, compared to the unfathomable will of heaven and the clear will of heaven, all living beings were more willing to believe in the invisible and untouchable will of heaven and revere the unfathomable will of heaven. On the contrary, the clear will of heaven was often questioned and criticized. Therefore, the gods were convinced. From then on, the law of heaven was divided into light and dark laws. For immortals and gods, any ghostly immortal who was conferred a title in the heavenly court and had power and responsibility had to understand the law of the heavenly court. Below them, all living beings who were not in the system of the heavenly court could not pry into the law of heaven. The will of heaven was unfathomable to them. The Tung Wang Kung's reform went against the tradition of letting all living beings know the law of the Emperor of Heaven. The operation of the law was divided into 2 levels. The enforcers knew the law and understood it, while the living beings were ignorant. As a result, the authority of the ghostly immortals, which had been restrained during the time of the Emperor of Heaven, lost its restraints and began to expand. Therefore, it was approved by the immortals and gods and became the first official move of the Tung Wang Kung's reform. From this point on, the system of governance of the heavenly court designed by the Emperor of Heaven was torn open. In the past, the Emperor of Heaven used the merit law to promote the ghostly immortals and guide all living beings. He used the law of heaven to punish demons and restrict the ghostly immortals. The merit law and the law of heaven one reward and one punishment, established the system of reward and punishment for the ghostly immortals and all living beings. To the ghostly immortals, it was called law. The ghostly immortals were the enforcers and power system of the law of the heavenly court, but at the same time, the living beings supervised the ghostly immortals. Now that the Tung Wang Kung abolished the teachings of the Emperor of Heaven, it was equivalent to cutting off the chain that supervised the ghostly immortals. Unknowingly, he expanded the authority of the ghostly immortals and was naturally welcomed by the theocracy of the heavenly court. After attacking the law of heaven, the Tung Wang Kung, under the indulgence of Emperor Zhuanxiu, attacked the merit law again. Therefore, the merit law gradually became less known in the primordial world. Cultivators all knew that the merit law was a supreme divine item. When a merit divine light shone on one's body, one could achieve enlightenment and ask the heavenly court to confer a title. It could improve one's cultivation, deepen one's understanding of the great Tao, and even increase one's dharmic powers. It could prove one's divinity externally and cultivate one's body internally. It was the primordial world's panacea, the number one divine item for cultivation. It could be used to refine dharma treasures, used for cultivation, raised one's status, and allowed one to live forever. It was a supreme treasure. Even in the era of Brahma Wujia, there was still the merit law left in the foundation of the great Tao of the universe that operated the five virtues. Any one of the five virtues was a cultivation resource that surpassed any heavenly treasure. After the series of reforms by the Tung Wang Kung, the merit law had become a great Tao of cultivation. It was secretly passed down by many large sects and even mighty figures. How to cultivate the merit law, other than a vague description of doing good and accumulating virtue, there was no clear explanation. Some mighty figures could still use the hidden great Tao of merit to calculate the location of a portion of the merit law and let their disciples collect it. However, no one could cultivate the real great Tao of merit. All the clans and sects were stuffing their own goods into the great Tao of merit and virtue that the Celestial Arch had set up, infiltrating their own morals and ethics into the idea that the Celestial Arch had set his heart and life for all living beings. When the Emperor of Heaven made the law, he used clear standards to advocate and reward those who protected the rule of the heavenly court and helped the operation of the law. However, after the reform, the black-yellow merit chi was gradually difficult to be witnessed. Even if many people had merit, they did not know where it came from or how to cultivate it. One could rely on the mighty figures to calculate the various inconsistencies and contradictions accumulated in the operation of heaven and earth. Many living beings were entangled with many karma. When the operation of heaven and earth was not smooth, calamities and tribulations would descend. By suppressing natural disasters and eliminating tribulations, one could immediately obtain merit. The entanglement of karma often led to tribulations. By following the mandate of heaven and cutting off karma, one could also obtain merit. The power to explain and the idea of the great Tao of merit was controlled by the mighty figures. The Emperor of Heaven opened up a path of great Tao for all living beings. Gradually, it was monopolized by the powerful figures until the Buddhist sect supported the underworld. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva entered the underworld and used the art of karma to erode the art of nether virtue. As a result, the five virtues collapsed. The mystic door and the Buddhist sect used this to interfere with the underworld's reincarnation. When the Emperor of Heaven banished concubine Hutu, he used the art of nether virtue to replace Hutu's heavenly Tao for reincarnation. This was the first time he interfered with reincarnation. Although he destroyed the order of the heavenly Tao, the Emperor of Heaven's law was still considered fair. Although it was bad to interfere with reincarnation, the actual situation was not serious. The situation where reincarnation was distorted by the karma of all living beings could still be controlled. Later on, the art of nether virtue was destroyed, and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva entered the underworld. The second time he interfered with reincarnation was very violent. Various sects wantonly interfered with reincarnation and replaced the heavenly Tao with their own ethical and moral concepts. The art of heavenly Tao that Hutu created reincarnation was simple and straightforward. The heavenly Tao was natural. Death was like the extinguishing of a lamp. Reincarnation had nothing to do with the previous life. It was like ashes and smoke. The next life was not a continuation of the previous life. As for the art of nether virtue, set up by the Emperor of Heaven, there was the inheritance of good and evil, but it did not continue to the next life. The art of nether virtue did not enter reincarnation. It was inherited by the descendants. The descendants could accumulate virtue for their ancestors, and the ancestors could also accumulate good fortune for the descendants. Those who cultivated the art of nether virtue died and turned into Een spirits. They temporarily entered the underworld as Een deities. While performing the duties of the underworld, they could also receive the art of nether virtue from their descendants. When the conditions were right, they could turn into Yang deities and ascend to the heavenly court. This was based on the art of divine path, set up by Hutu in the past. It was carried out according to the agreement between gods and ghosts. Although the art of nether virtue was destroyed by Hutu, the art of nether virtue did not enter the future and did not interfere with reincarnation. Even if one cultivated more art of nether virtue, he could only become a god in heaven. He could not interfere with reincarnation and the choice of reincarnation in the next life. Therefore, the karma accumulated by all living beings would not continue to the next life because of reincarnation. It was until the mystic door of Buddhism interfered with the art of nether virtue that the art of karma eroded the art of nether virtue and interfered with reincarnation in the name of good and evil. In the name of settling the karma of nether virtue, it was actually the so-called karma of samsara. Under the name of accumulating art of nether virtue, the karma of the previous life became entangled with the next life. It snowballed continuously and reincarnation was gradually infected. In this way, reincarnation was poisonous. Therefore, Hutu, Empress Envoi, River Styx, and the others plotted to destroy the underworld and settle the score with the mystic door of Buddhism on reincarnation. Therefore, a group of Een deities, Yinluo, of the underworld, and even the great mediums of Buddhism, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, who was sitting on the lotus throne, were all killed, causing a great tribulation that was not inferior to the heaven court. It caused the netherworld to collapse, and reincarnation could only hide in the ultimate. The destruction of the heaven court actually started from the concealment of the art of heaven and the isolation of the heaven from the human world. However, the isolation of the heaven from the human world was still the basic policy of Emperor Zhuanxu. The living beings were not even clear about the fair and open art of heaven, let alone the power struggle in the heaven court that was hard to be known by outsiders. Beneath the white jade platform, all the living beings, cultivators, and immortals saw Prince Mu and Prince Bo Jun standing against each other as equals. Although their momentum was slightly weaker, the mighty figures who supported Prince Mu seemed to have a higher status and were more powerful. Immediately, they whispered to each other, "Another prince is here. This prince is so overbearing. He doesn't even give face to Prince Bo Jun." It is said that he is the son of Emperor Donghua. Emperor Donghua is the deputy emperor of the heaven court, and his status is even higher than Emperor Ziyang. Of course, he doesn't have to give face to anyone. Yuan Yu's incarnation fanned the flames in the crowd. Prince Mu is too overbearing. No wonder that powerful being from the future dared to kill in front of Prince Bo Jun. So he has this big backer. Emperor Mu is so overbearing. I'm afraid his status in the heaven court is higher than Prince Bo Jun's. Emperor Donghua. It is said that Emperor Donghua had something to do with the demotion of the Duke of the East and the collapse of the Zifu continent. He is the most powerful minister in front of Emperor Zhuanxu, and his power in the heaven court is amazing. He is the son of the emperor who suppressed the Duke of the East. No wonder he is so arrogant. Oh, don't speak nonsense. Do you want to die? When the time comes, you will be recorded in the book of life and death, and the heavenly book will take away your providence, making you die without knowing why. How can we criticize such a mighty figure? Among the mighty figures on the white jade platform, which one of them didn't have amazing hearing? Even if they were blind and deaf, with a sweep of their divine senses, they could naturally understand what was being said below. Crown Prince Bo Jun's eyes flashed with a hint of anger. What did those ignorant commoners know? In the heaven court, a mere shepherd boy had to walk with his tail between his legs in front of him. Shepherd boy was weak by nature and did not have a firm will. He was easily swayed by others. This weak personality made him filial and gentle, but at the same time, he was unable to bear great ambitions. Therefore, although his father, Emperor Donghua, doted on him, he did not give him any power. He was only raised by his side, a young son who was doted on. As for Bo Jun, he had a firm will and astonishing ambition since he was young. Or rather, he had been nurtured and valued by his father early on. The two of them could not be compared, but that shepherd boy had been bewitched for some reason, and his mental demons had taken over him. He had suddenly stepped forward to embarrass Prince Bo Jun. Prince Bo Jun signaled to Zhang Jiao, "It's time for you to hand in your allegiance." Receiving Prince Bo Jun's signal, Zhang Jiao's expression remained calm. He stood up and said, "Zhang Jiao of the Path of Peace greets Prince Mu. Du Kuang is a loyal elder, a virtuous figure. Just because of a slip of the tongue, he has been humiliated by Prince Mu's subordinates. Isn't that a little too much?" Yuan Yu stepped forward and said lightly, "You are Zhang Jiao of the Path of Peace?" Prince Mu is kind and has always been kind to others. However, this person is bold and arrogant. Just because he has some cultivation, he dares to look down on the heaven court and the laws of heaven. He has no respect for his superiors and does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. I wanted to give him a light warning to show the dignity of the heaven court and proclaim Prince Mu's magnanimity. Who knew that he would have such vicious intentions? How can I punish him lightly? Zhang Jiao, if you understand a bigger picture, then break off all relations with this person to show that you respect the laws of heaven. Now that you have jumped out to fight for this person, is it because you are dissatisfied with the heaven court and want to interfere with the laws? Zhang Jiao placed the 9-section staff in his hand and said indifferently, "I'm talking to Prince Mu. What rank is a servant like you in the heaven court? You have no rank, no status, and yet you dare to speak to me like this. This shows how much Prince Mu looks down on the talents of the world. How dare a servant look down on the talents of the world? Have you forgotten the teachings of the Duke of the East? Since you are so lax in controlling your subordinates, Prince Mu, it seems like you lack discipline. I will teach this servant a lesson for you." He gently raised the 9-section staff, and 9 heavenly realms appeared on the 9-section staff. Each of the heavenly realms contained countless gods. With a shake of the 9-section staff, it transformed into a huge heavenly pillar that supported the 9 heavens. With infinite power, it struck toward Yuan Yu. Prince Mu was shocked. Not good. The life-saving jade talisman that my father gave me is trembling. Father said that if there is something wrong with the jade talisman, then the enemy is definitely not someone I can deal with. He told me to crush the jade talisman and escape. Zhang Jiao is so powerful that he can threaten my life with an innate spiritual treasure. But this time, he wants to deal with Brother Xingyang. Even my life-saving jade talisman can't stop him. Brother Xingyang is in danger. Prince Mu gritted his teeth and decided to block the attack for Yuan Yu, even at the risk of losing face. Yuan Yu sneered in his heart. "I have finally lured you to attack. Let me see, who exactly is the person behind you? Which of the primeval 9 emperors wants to overthrow the heaven court?" Brother Zhao Gongming reminded me that someone in Mystic Door is trying to use primeval beginning as the sole ruler and return to the era when the primeval heavenly king ruled everything. I thought it was Teacher Primeval's old subordinates who didn't want to be left out. Now, it seems that someone wants to use Teacher Primeval's name to help him become the Emperor of Heaven. Whether I, Yuan Yu, am a disciple of the Mystic Door or a deputy cult master of the Demon Gate, I will not allow such an ambitious person to succeed. Yuan Yu was about to reveal a bit of his grand, heavenly immortal strength. But as soon as he made his move, he felt a chaotic, profound orb that shone with five-colored light that resembled a world falling into his bosom soundlessly. Yuan Yu was shocked when he touched it. Senior brother. He was shocked. It was one of the 24 sea-calming divine beads in his hands. Yuan Yu thought quickly. Is it senior brother Zhao Gongming or Patriarch River Styx? Or Daipamkara? Senior brother, please make your move. Yuan Yu bowed forward, and the sea-calming divine bead in his arms leaped out with five-colored light like a five-colored sun. Yuan Yu took out the divine bead and activated its power slightly, transforming into a huge world. There was a clear light, white light, and countless immortal lights of different colors in it, making it hard for people to look at it directly. The five-colored light shone and broke the 9 worlds of the 9-section staff. Then it fell down and hit the 9-section staff. Zhang Jiao felt a great force coming from the 9-section staff. It was extremely heavy and broke all changes. Whether it was the divine power of the 9 degrees of the Great Tao or the nature of the 9-section staff as a primordial spiritual treasure, they could not bear such a huge weight. The force suppressed all changes in a straightforward manner. Zhang Jiao could not deal with it and could only bear it. It was as if a world had smashed down, heavier than the 4 seas of the primordial world. Zhang Jiao's face turned pale from the impact, and he almost lost his breath. Even the 5 elemental deities condensed in his chest were smashed apart, almost scattering the 5 qis in his chest. Zhang Jiao staggered and almost fell to the ground. Even though he managed to maintain his figure, the 9-section staff in his hand inevitably slipped. The primordial spiritual treasure, transformed by the emperor, was beaten to the ground for the 2nd time today. Zhang Jiao's hair was disheveled, and his Taoist robe was disheveled from the impact of the aura on his body. He staggered and took 1 step back, 2 steps, 3 steps before he could barely stand. 5 deep footprints were left on the white jade platform, shattering a restriction. Seeing the 5-color divine bead fall, Crown Prince Bo Jun exclaimed in shock, the sea-calming divine bead. First the 4 immortal slaying swords, then the sea-calming divine bead. Is that grand heavenly venerable really dissatisfied? Crown Prince Bo Jun's face paled, and Zhang Jiao's heart was filled with fear. Chapter 1305. Sea-calming divine pearl. Demon King Jiao's heart sank. Legend has it that the Grand Master of Heaven admires Emperor Heaven of Heaven the most among the 3 pure ones. Could the rumors be true? First the 4 immortal vanquishing swords, then the sea-calming divine pearl. It seems like the Mystic Door's attitude is not unanimous. There are even differences. Yes, Emperor Zhuanxu does not have the boldness to stand up to Emperor Heaven. He often shows goodwill to great heavenly venerate primordial beginning. With these people protecting him, it will be difficult to carry out the plan to attack Mu Boy. Old Man Mental Demon retreated pathetically. No, someone is protecting Prince Mu. I have failed several times. Great Sage Jiao, find another opportunity in the future. Demon King Jiao said decisively, no, we will wait for the demons to attack. If we delay any longer, the matter might be leaked and change. After all, the demons are not united. Also, the Imperial Lord doesn't have much time left for us. The Imperial Lord's return to the primordial world is imminent, and the demon race's divine court is about to descend. Before that, we have to divert the heavenly court's attention. We have to make the primordial world burn and mobilize the heavenly court's troops from the outside. This way, the heavenly court will have to suppress the primordial world from the inside and defend against the divine court from the outside. That Imperial Lord Ziyang and the other ambitious people are waiting for the heavenly court's power to be depleted. Only when these goo worms lurking within the heavenly court take action can they overturn the heavenly court. In order to support the God Emperor's great plan to overturn the world, the 10,000 races loyal to the God Emperor chose us. The 7 sages. Prince Mu can't do it. Isn't there another prince? Demon King Jiao said with a cold gaze. Old man, mental demon, sucked in a breath of cold air. Attacking Prince Bo Jun. But isn't he your ally? How can they be allies? We are only temporarily cooperating for our mutual benefit. They don't treat us as allies, and we won't treat them as allies. We are just using each other. Demon King Jiao sneered. Instigating Prince Bo Jun to attack Prince Mu, I will gather the 7 sages. Now that Prince Mu has appeared, if we act against him, we will have to consider the intervention of the Milky Way Navy. Only by calling the others over will we have absolute confidence in delaying those unknown people along with the Milky Way Navy. The person pretending to be Crown Prince Bo Jun killed Crown Prince Mu and framed by Sujin. In order to clear his name, Crown Prince Bo Jun would have to track down the murderer and use this opportunity to slaughter those demons who are close to the heavenly court and cultivate virtue. There's no way Prince Bo Jun doesn't know that we did it. Old man, mental demon whispered. So what if he finds out that we did it? Even if he pinches his nose, he'll still bear with it. The demons assassinated Celestial Emperor Dong Hua's son, Lord Mu Jun. So Prince Bo Jun will hunt down the demon tribes related to the case. The massacre will incite public anger among the demons, which will lead to riots. This way, we can incite the anger of all the demons and rebel together. The key to this plan is none other than the Heavenly Court's supervisor envoy in the Bright Glow region. The local power is controlled by Imperial Emperor Ziyang's people. So once there's a major case, there will be a strategic gap before the Heavenly Court's control by Emperor Zhuanshu can react. Using this gap, Prince Bo Jun will be able to act on his own. Suppressing the demons is a strategy set by Emperor Heaven. Easing the relationship between humans and demons is Imperial Emperor Ziyang's position. Therefore, Prince Bo Jun will suppress the demons in the name of investigating Prince Mu's assassin. Emperor Zhuanshu can't pursue the matter because if he does, he will have to give the demons an explanation. Once he gives the demons an explanation, Imperial Emperor Ziyang, who is in cahoots with the demons, will have a lot of room to maneuver. Therefore, Prince Mu's massacre of the demons will incite a riot among the demons that will target the heavenly courts. When Prince Bo Jun massacred the demons, Imperial Emperor Ziyang will have a chance to act. It was clearly Prince Bo Jun who massacred the demons, but in the end, he managed to get Imperial Emperor Ziyang to come forward and negotiate with the demons. Old Man Mental Demon smacked his lips and praised. If people like you and Ziyang become mental demons, you will definitely be able to attain the position of Mental Demon Crown Prince and have a place in the Mental Demon realm, inverting black and white, colluding with outsiders and outsiders. Wonderful, wonderful. This is in line with the tradition of the Devil Path. This is Emperor Zhuanshu's own policy. On one hand, he wants to rely on the authority of Emperor Heaven, and on the other hand, he wants to eliminate Emperor Heaven's authority. Therefore, when facing the demons, it is like his primordial spirit is split. On the one hand, he can't suppress and purge demons openly like Emperor Heaven. On the other hand, he can't compare to Tung Wang Kung and Imperial Emperor Ziyang, who can set things right and reconcile with the demons. Emperor Zhuanshu's position is destined to be bullied on both sides. If he compromises with the demons, the old officials of Emperor Heaven will definitely be dissatisfied. Those stubborn old people of the human race will also cause trouble. Emperor Zhuanshu's foundation will be in trouble. If he is tough on the demons, it will definitely affect his new policies. It will be difficult for him to escape the influence of Emperor Heaven, and he will also lose the support of the demons. On the contrary, Imperial Emperor Ziyang has the upper hand. Even if his son, Crown Prince Bo Jun, massacred the demons, he can still turn the tables and turn the temporary disadvantage into an advantage for the overall situation. Do you believe that even if the massacre was done by Crown Prince Bo Jun, the 7 great sages can blame it on Emperor Zhuanshu? Old Man Mental Demon smiled bitterly and said, "You are the leaders of the demons. You have great influence in the demon race. Aren't you the ones who decide what is right and wrong? In this kind of contradiction and entanglement, the truth is not important." Demon King Jiao said calmly, "It is what we say the truth is. This operation can be carried out by me alone. Now that things have come to this, we have no choice but to ask the other great sages to take action. Then our original plan of having the 7 great sages attack at different places in the primordial world at the same time and cause chaos will fail. In that case, we have to make more moves and make more breakthroughs. We have to make the matter bigger along the way. The other routes will cooperate, and we will hold on here. Only then can they cause trouble. Demon King Jiao said, I have already contacted the other great sages. They are rushing over. Make your move on Crown Prince Bo Jun now and knock him out temporarily. Crown Prince Bo Jun has a numinous treasure that can guard against mental demons and clear his mind. Old man, mental demon, smiled and said, It's a little difficult to make him unconscious. If it's not difficult, why would we ask you, old man, mental demon, to take action? Demon King Jiao smiled and said, Old man, mental demon laughed. Demon King Jiao knows me well. This small difficulty is not difficult for me. In the primordial world, there were countless Dharma spells that could confuse one's mind. Didn't the demons look for Old Man Mental Demon because they were outstanding in the Tao of mental demons and were best in this aspect? And Old Man Mental Demon was also an outstanding expert in this aspect of the Tao of mental demons. He was one of the few experts who had refined their mental demons to the point where they were not afraid of merit and could affect providence. Old Man Mental Demon's great mental demon art could already affect the target's providence. Now, there were experts who had mastered the Tao of destiny. They could see that Crown Prince Bo Jun's providence was colorful. It rolled down from his head like a canopy. The colorful canopy of providence was several acres in radius. It was extremely shocking. It could be seen that Crown Prince Bo Jun had obtained the great providence of the heavenly courts. In a small place like the bright barbaric domain, he was definitely the son of providence. Anyone who faced him would have to lower their head. Any kind of plot would be dodged by his good fortune. However, Old Man Mental Demon flicked his fingers and released a few wisps of obscure black gas that quietly attached to the canopy of providence. After a while, Crown Prince Bo Jun felt slightly uncomfortable. However, his attention was still focused on Crown Prince Mu, who had suddenly risen to power. This slight abnormality was instantly thrown to the back of his mind. The wisps of faint black gas gradually seeped into the canopy, destroying the purity of the colorful gas. Thus, the 5-colored providence on the canopy gradually became impure and dimmed. The canopy also became a little weary, shrinking from several acres to 1/3 of its original size. Old Man Mental Demon's demonic thoughts targeted the providence. Anyone would think that Crown Prince Bo Jun had been suppressed by Crown Prince Mu, causing his providence to weaken. That was why his mind was muddled, making it difficult for him to discover the demonic methods. On the other side, Demon King Jiao was contacting someone. A deep male voice said to him, Second brother, you've adapted well. Crown Prince Mu can't do it, but it's the same for Crown Prince Bo Jun. His Highness God Emperor is about to return. We must create an opportunity for His Highness. Third brother, fourth brother, and fifth brother will be there soon. Sixth brother, continue contacting the other tribes. Big brother, seventh brother. Demon King Jiao hesitated. The voice on the other side pondered for a moment before saying, We haven't figured out the problem with seventh brother yet. He has an extraordinary background, and his background surpasses all of us. Even if His Majesty values him greatly, he isn't loyal to us demons or His Majesty. In terms of cultivation and magical power, seventh brother is the strongest among us. The 4 chaotic world monkeys have extraordinary potential. But the 4 chaotic world monkeys are the descendants of the chaos demon ape. The chaos demon ape might be related to the demonic sect. There are too many mysteries about seventh brother. We haven't figured out his problem yet, so we can only make use of him and not put him in an important position. The plan this time is related to His Majesty's descent, and although it's a little troublesome, there aren't any existences that are too difficult to deal with. Let's not inform seventh brother. Crown Prince Bo Jun's primordial spirit was in a daze, but he didn't notice that something was wrong. Facing the powerful Crown Prince Mu, he was at a loss. He didn't comfort Zhang Jiao even when he was defeated. Instead, he revealed a look of fear. This made the Milky Way Navy's expert with great eyesight feel a little strange. He said in a low voice, "Why did Crown Prince Bo Jun lose his composure? Is he at a loss of what to do?" Commandant Qin didn't find it strange. He said with a chuckle, "Although Crown Prince Bo Jun has always been shrewd and ruthless, he is still a young man after all. Facing the usually low-key shepherd boy's sudden strength, it's only natural for him to lose his composure. Besides, I feel that Crown Prince Bo Jun's providence is a little low. Could it be that shepherd boy's providence is burgeoning and is suppressing him?" Crown Prince Bo Jun hurriedly said a few words before ending the sky-bearing great meat. Although his subordinates felt that Crown Prince Bo Jun's standard had been greatly reduced, they believed that it was because he had not adjusted his mental state. They wanted to stop for today and let Crown Prince Bo Jun think of a countermeasure. It would be good for him to calm down. Therefore, no one stopped him. Crown Prince Mu went with the flow and watched coldly as they adjourned. In the great eastern wilderness, in the 100,000 mountains, a monkey was sitting on a treetop with his legs crossed. He was nibbling on a peach. His pair of golden eyes were extremely spirited and captivating. However, he had a lazy disposition and looked very casual. Although he was in the form of a beast, this monkey had a great background. He was a Khanate god. Among the chaos god fiends, he had an extremely strong, murderous nature. He was also an expert among the chaos god fiends. After the chaos demon ape, who had attained great divine powers, perished at the hands of Pangu, his essence transformed into one of the 4 chaotic world monkeys, Spiritual Stone Monkey. Spiritual Stone Monkey, the 7th great sage, moved his ears. Suddenly, he had 3 stacked ears. His 6 ears moved slightly, as if he was listening to something. After a while, he chewed on the peach pit and said vaguely, "Old Ox is too petty. How can he say that my background is unknown? Old Son's background is clean, and he is from a good family. I know him very well. I never expected that Old Ox, who calls me brother on the surface, would be so guarded on the inside. Those brats from the demon sect are a little interesting. They dared to use sect leader Tongtian's tiger skin to pull their banner. Interesting. Saint Mother of Mount Li is my 4th sister, and we have a good relationship. That little white snake is her disciple, and seems to be at a disadvantage. I will also go and join in the fun." That monkey leaped into the void and disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was already countless miles away in the bright, rugged region. If the other great sages were to see this, they would definitely be overwhelmed with shock.